Welcome everyone to interview number 33 of OSU Improvement Month. Today with Alden. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey, welcome. So, just in case people aren't familiar with you, could you give a brief intro to who you are as a player and what people would probably recognize you for?
Hey, yeah, my name is Alden. I've been around probably since playing competitive OSU since like 2015, so I've been around the scene for a long time. I think I've been known for playing like the mechanics, I guess people call it, back in the day with like Hard Rock. Maybe mainly like an aim player probably. I play a lot of streams nowadays, but I would say my skill sets are getting a lot more diverse. If people know me, they probably know me more from my loved maps like Ikanai Borderline or like Spider Dance, that sort of stuff. I've done a bunch of mapping recently. You might also know me from OWC. I mapped like last week, round of 32. I've been doing competitive like or tournament mapping for like about a year now. So yeah, there's also that. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, you've been around the scene. You've had your round or two around the community, I feel like.
Yeah, I've had my heyday, had my slumber, and then now it's kind of just drifting along.
Oh, you did have your slumber. Okay, well, I think we'll get there. I want to sort of go through the story from the beginning, just I guess just for fun. So
Yeah.
you you made your account in November 2013. What was that experience like finding the game, and what were your earlier inspirations for playing?
Um, I think actually, yeah, I remember this clearly. The first time I ever heard like about the game OSU is when I searched up free games to play online because I had a really crappy computer and I didn't really want to play League anymore. Because I barely ran that at like 20 FPS, 20, 30 FPS. So I found this game. They said you should play OSU. It's really low maintenance and it doesn't take that much. Uh, it doesn't take a good setup. And I'm like, okay, seems cool. And then I googled OSU, and then I found it. I also searched it up on YouTube, and what I saw was like one of the very first OSU videos I ever saw was the World Cup. Specifically, I think it was 2013 or 2014 around the time. I already made an account by this time probably, but what really inspired me because when I made my account, I played like a little bit, then I stopped. Right. I
Ah,
think that shows in my play
yeah,
history.
yeah, it
Or
does.
yeah, yeah. So I made my account early, but I didn't play until I saw Team Canada specifically against shoot, there was a player called Blue Flame. I think it was Austria.
Oh,
Might be
that
wrong.
sounds right. I think so.
Yeah,
I
and I
remember that
saw
name.
I saw a player named Ramen Otaku at the time when Score V1 was still a thing, and he just destroyed with a B rank while everyone was getting like S ranks or A ranks. And his act was so bad, but what inspired me was his combo was so good. And I thought that was so cool. And I was like, oh dang, his aim's so good. I kinda wanna be like that.
Oh my
So
God.
I think that's when I started playing OSU more seriously because I think that 2015 or 14 run they did pretty decent, and I wanted to like be like I want to be there one day, or I want to be. That seems like so much fun, and that really kicked off the OSU journey for me at least.
Yeah, for context, you're also from Canada, so I think
Yeah,
seeing that Canadian team and
yeah, a little bit of patronism.
that is like the lost archive or like the lost lore of
Yeah,
your play style for
yeah,
being such a combo player.
that is like people think it's because I really like I hung out a lot with Beezer, but it's also like it was a lot before that. It was way before.
That's
It's when
crazy.
yeah. It was like my path was already kind of set in stone since like day one, at least finding the game.
So you played the game a little bit after making your account, and
Mhm.
then a while later you came across the World Cup videos somehow, and then that like got you to start playing really actively.
Yeah, that is correct.
So it sort of seems like from the very beginning you had it in your sights to play tournaments competitively.
Yeah, I definitely did, and I at least when I first started playing the game, that was like my original purpose. I wanted to play to get good enough to play competitively. When I first started the game, I just realized at first how hard it was. So I knew I was gonna be quite a while before I could get to that point, right? So instead of that, I just focused on solo play. Actually, I didn't really interact with the community a lot for my first. I think that's all pretty normal for most people, or some people who started playing games. They kind of just start on their own. OC is a very single player focused game, I would say. So it's kind of hard to like branch off and meet friends. But I did meet some. I think I started playing a lot more because my friends who were like around rank 3K at the time, around that hover around that area, also played the game, and I played CS:GO a lot with them. So I kind of wanted to let my first goal was be just like as good as them. Uh, and I heard how long they've been playing the game, so I kind of realized that it would take a while. But I kind of wanted to do the fast track. I was kind of impatient. So when at least when I first started out, I think this still applies to me today. Like my philosophy when I play the game is I say this all the time, but I just spammed Airman. I think that was I saw that map one time. I think one of Nero's plays, or I forgot what top player had a crazy Airman play at the time.
Probably
But
Nero, yeah.
yeah, and I was like, man, this map looks so hard, but like I can do it. I feel like I can do it, and I just spent like I remember spending like 1 or 2 days straight of just playing nothing but that map and slowly inching my way to a pass. Um, and I think the satisfaction of finally passing that map, definitely, uh, kind of paved my way on like how I looked at the game. It was very satisfying, and I wanted to increase my aim skill cap, I would say. So that's what I kind of set forward going on when I played the game.
So those friends that you said you played CS:GO with, were those friends from school or where were they from?
Uh, where were they from? I met them through. Oh my god, I met them through friends. Uh, friends of friends. We met through a Minecraft survival game server.
Oh,
But
that's
it
good.
turns out that the people like I played with actually owned a pho shop that was that I went to often at the time,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
and you didn't even know until later?
and I didn't even know until like later, like when I realized that they lived near me, and then that person introduced me to his friend group, and that's how I met like a bunch of the people who played Osu.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, it was kind of wild. It was kind of a small world.
Okay, so you found Osu independently, but then
Yeah,
you discovered later that the friends you were playing CS:GO with were
I
also
also
playing
played the
Osu.
game. Yeah,
And I assume that had a pretty big influence on like your motivation early on to push yourself.
yeah. I had like a burning like passion to like at least catch up to them. Uh, and then I didn't really think about it past it, but at least for the start, that was like one of my first goals, I would say.
Was tournament play always something that was in the back of your mind at the time, or was it mostly just catching up to those friends?
Uh, I would say the longest I dream was to play for like OWC. I was like so at the time I was so dead set on like being like the next coming of Beezer, basically. I was so dense, but that was on the back of my mind. I wanted to be the best aim player in Canada. I remember telling my little wee self at the time.
So that was throughout 2014, basically, where your play
Yeah,
count was actually pretty high. You were getting 3K, 4K play count per
yeah.
month
I was
around that
that
time.
was definitely due to me spam retrying because I was failing a lot of maps because I would always try to pass high start maps at the time, I'd say. So that was probably the result of my big play count.
Mm, if I jump back to, or I guess jump forward to nowadays, I feel like that's something that you still do pretty often. Is
Oh yeah,
you just like you take a map you can barely get a C rank on, and you just grind it for locals until you can
I
get.
grinded down. I remember specifically back in like 2017, 2018, or we would be playing. I would play Uta. all the time
Yeah.
because I wanted the FC, or I think I had like a pretty like okay pass, and I was like, I wanted the FC so bad. So for a long period, I would just play nothing but Uta.
Oh man.
I think as a player, I've always been like that, where I'd get fixated on at least one map or one goal, and I'd just grind to it. Um, I still do that nowadays. Recently, you seen the Marshmary, the
Yes, yes, I
Marshmary
have.
escapade? Yeah, that was a journey of loss,
Oh no.
struggle, internal battles. I've like, oh my gosh, that taught me a lot. Actually, grinding that.
Not only skill set wise.
Yeah, not only skill set wise, but like, you know, me as a, like, I delved into my inner being. Like, who am I as a person? Like, what am I doing with my life?
It was just grinding Marshmary, and I feel like that was mostly like single tap cap on that map, from what I
uh,
remember. Or what exactly
I
was it?
played it originally because I was so tired of seeing all of these alters get to play aim maps for free. Because I don't think the aim on stuff like Marshmary is specifically hard. It's mostly the ult and the coordination, right? And I was like, I need to grind my ult so I can finally play these maps. But no
Oh,
matter how hard I tried,
oh
it
no.
was so I got decently better. I would say grinding that made my, not specifically my ult jump skill set, but my ult in general a lot more comfortable. But what ended up happening was I played that map so much that I just was able to single tap it. And
Oh,
then I realized that if I just pushed my speed, my raw speed, I could uh I could play these maps just single tapping instead. So I
wait.
found my own solution just in a roundabout way.
Was that the log off now Marshmary, the shorter one?
Yes, it was the log off now, Marshmary. So
Oh,
you got to think of it from my perspective. There's like the hard parts at the start, right? So
right.
I had only play, and I dedicated myself to passing every single run. So um every time I'd miss at the start, it would just be so demoralizing to play the rest of the map.
No.
Because it was so inefficient for practice now looking back at it, because there's only like 5 seconds of like an actual hard part, and then the rest is kind of just a snooze fest, even from like single tapping perspective, because the strain's not actually that high.
But I feel like that sort of mindset is something that you just kind of have always had with you, and
Yeah,
just grinding,
100%.
grinding maps over and
Yep.
over again.
Mhm.
So, okay, so I think let's go back through the timeline. And you said that you started playing tournaments in 2015. So, can you tell the story, I guess, of how you came across your first tournaments and what that experience was like?
Yeah, I think I first started when, um I felt really good because at the time, this is when I first started getting like closer, I'd say, to the multiplayer aspect, because over the years of just like playing the game a little bit more around 2015, like 2 years later, uh, I met a certain player called Chrono Trig, who was a top player in Canada at the time. And I started like, he was the first Canadian I ever got like probably along with, or I talked to a lot. And I looked up to him a lot because he was a top player, like what, top 200 around there at
I
the
think
time.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that kind of got me like, I felt like I was kind of getting into the big leagues.
Oh,
I
yep.
was like, I think I was like around like 1 point, like mid 1K at the time after 2 years. And that's when I set at the time like that Tomai score, the Sky
Yeah.
Stars extra, yeah.
Okay,
That was wild.
I want to focus on that score a little bit.
Yeah.
So, can you tell the story and like relative to like the other plays that you had at the time?
Yeah, no, I was like a 300, like 390 Andy for like a long while, I would say. I don't know which score came first, if it was Masquerade or the Tomai score, but I remembered my aim was, I was already like by that time like an established like aim player, right?
Okay.
I'd probably focused on aim a lot. And what happened was one day I was messaging or one day I got a random spectate from Bolglet, who's also another top Canadian OC player at the time, Hard Rock Focus. So he had really good aim. And I asked him like how to play aim. And Bolglet told me play how he played with instant disappearing circles or vanishing circles, insta vanish, and how he read circles. He broke up jumps into 1-2 sections that were easy to read to him. And it took a lot of focus, but he said that by like practicing reading jumps this way, it was a lot easier to focus and snap your aim to jumps. And I kind of found um, I started to adopt that mentality and adopt that style when I was playing. And lo and behold, around that time, I just scrolled through the maps, saw that Tomai map that I've already played it quite a bit, but I never really set like any crazy scores on it. And lo and behold, I randomly set it. That was weird because I never expected to set that play. For reference, I think my top play at the time was like 290, I think,
Yeah,
or
that sounds
yeah,
right.
it
So,
was like 290, 280.
huh.
And when I set that play, that was like for mid 400s, or at least like for like yeah around 400. So I skipped 300 pp at the time, and I was just I got like messages from everyone. I got kind of like accusated for a bit. But immediately after like I set that, I started setting like JoJo's that star map on Hard Rock, or I don't know, Nomad Hard Rock, one of the two. I think I set Masquerade around that time, Hard Rock. Like, I think that's when it kind of like clicked, and I started getting all these aim scores. And at the time, I thought I'd be nervous, but I don't know. I was just having fun with the game at the time, and I was enjoying the improvement, that little improvement spike.
Okay, so you got a random spectate from Bulglet and they told you about insta vanish circles, which
Mhm.
basically is like in your skin. So some skins, if the hit circles are skinned as the numbers, so numbers fade out instantly and then the circle has like a pop. But if you edit your skin so that the numbers have the hit circle image and then the hit circle image itself is invisible, then when you click on the circle, it'll vanish instantly without having the little pop animation. And you said that that was something that was really helpful for you.
Yeah, I was always kind of it helped with focus because there's like less like clutter in the screen. I'd say so. It helps with I'd say a lot of high AR people like using it. I know where I think Reedcat uses it. I know Kartra uses it. I don't know who else, but I know a lot of like the Kush Fan Man uses that sort of style. So it's definitely helps with at least high AR, I'd say.
So, did you get that Tomei score? So, this was on the Skystars diff, Tragic Love
Yeah.
Extra. And did you get that score the same day when Bulga was spectating?
Um, I no, I don't think so. I think it was like maybe a day after or something like that. It was a little bit after. But I remember getting the spectate from him and then like just talking, like being around the community a lot. Really like motivated me to get better. So seeing all these top players and starting to like get noticed by them, I really wanted like I went out of my way to ask people how to improve with the game rather than me kind of just fiddling my thumbs and like just doing my own thing.
Do you feel like that was valuable at all? Like getting the top player perspectives? Like, was it actually the tips that helped the most, or was it just kind of the inspiration that they were talking to you?
A little bit of both. Like to this day, I use like the things that Bolga have told me. Right, I use that same style, and then I pass that down to other people. What I've learned. So I definitely say that what the advice he gave me did help, but it was definitely the motivation and the kind of the validation of like 2 years of grinding. I think were the were the main factors of my improvement. I'd feel like the feeling of like I made it, like I'm here now, sort of deal.
After
I
like
think that
all
was
that
a lot
grinding?
more. Yeah, after all that grinding, I think that was a lot more helpful rather than the actual tips itself. Though they did help, but like I feel like the more like I would probably come across those advice anyways. I feel like I would get through them anyways. I was just kind of I got them faster by asking.
Okay, that actually makes perfect sense. So you mentioned nerves a little bit, and you said that like at that time, so you skipped 300 pp. You went from 290 to like 400 something with the Tomei score, and then you just started setting a bunch more like aim scores. You said you did JoJo's like Star Platinum with Hard Rock,
Yeah.
and what was that with Hard Rock or
I don't know. Hard Rock, one of the two. I don't know. I have like an old screenshot out there,
okay?
but it exists. But
So
Masquerade was the other big one at the time.
what?
Masquerade Hard Rock.
Oh, is that the MTU song?
Yeah. No, no, no. The
Oh
it's like the
wait,
Taeyang one.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That one
Masquerade.
was that was also like an old gold. I can't even do that now. That's insane. The fact that I could do that back then, like I have trouble doing that now.
Yeah, okay, the Taeyang song called
Yeah.
Amakakeru Hoshi.
Yeah, yeah. I just call it Masquerade because that's the diff name.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember this map. This is like the ultimate like hard rock farm map at the time.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I want to talk about nerve control a little bit, both at that
Yeah, for
time,
sure.
and we can sort of talk about other aspects of play as well.
Yeah.
But and specifically, I want to talk about like your like how what was going through your head during that Tomei score while you were FCing towards the end, because I feel like that's something that would like mess with a lot of people while they're setting that score. But yeah, can you talk a bit about nerve control and sort of your experiences with that?
Um, I played the map a bit. I think at the time I was just so fixated on at least setting a good score on it. I never expected to FC it at the time. And I didn't actually know the PP attached to it because I was just looking at the star rating. I wasn't really like thinking about how many like Pepe points I'd get. I wasn't really. I've hit. I think around that time I already hit 1K, and I was already well above my friends, so I wasn't really thinking about like rank or ranking up that sort of stuff. Though, like I knew I could probably hit like 3 digit or something. Like eventually, like I was slowly going up in rankings. It wasn't really like my concern. I think what's like that map in specific is kind of a special case because uh I knew the heart like I every time like I had a bad habit of like every time I say missed or whatever, I would like retry the map. So I never played it full way through. So I actually never knew that the hard part was the only hard part in the map.
Oh,
So because if you looked at the top diff, there's also like a little spike towards the end, right?
yeah.
And I kind of figured it would be the same, but there wasn't. So I was just kind of caught off guard. I was like, "Oh, is that it?" Something similar happened with my 700, where I was playing it and I played through the one stream, like hard stream, and then I was like, "Oh god, there has to be one more." And I kind of forgot that it was the end of the map, and by the time it was finished, I was like, "Oh, that's it."
Oh,
Um, I think definitely my nerves are tied to when like I know the map a lot better, and I know that like once I get it, it's done. Sort of deal. But at least with Tomai and then Troopers of the Stars, it's like uh I kind of got it without really like I got it because I wasn't really focusing on the hardest parts of the map. I'd say I was just focusing on getting a good score and clearing them instead.
that reminds me of that. Was it that map that Bubbleman FC'd? That like crazy. I don't remember what it's called, so someone can probably remind me in the live chat. But someone, he was like, "Oh, I was just trying to go for a pass," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to pass," and then he just like he FC'd the whole. It was like this really hard, like marathon, like crazy map. I don't remember exactly.
That sounds like Bubble Man. Didn't Emmerich do something similar where it's like he three modded like what is it, United? And he was just like, I'm trying to go for a good score, and he like six missed it.
Oh,
Like HDHRDT or something like that. That
that
happened like recently.
that sounds likely.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I remember also in your Tomei score, you talked about how like you how do I put this? You like throughout the towards the end of the map, you were just like, okay, any second now, I'm gonna miss.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I was like, surely there's another hard part. Like this can't just be it. It has to be more. Uh, and that's how you know it's a fire map, dude. Like that's insane. But no, there just wasn't anything like that was particularly hard. I remember people saying it was kind of like I just got lucky because the when I was playing on the hard part, I was like shaking and my aim was so like awkward at the hard part. But then when I played the easier parts, my aim was just like oddly smooth and kind of robotic. Uh, I'd say I think that's pretty accurate on like how I feel towards maps. Whenever it gets to a hard part, I kind of get shaky, but everything else is kind of like autopilot, I'd say.
Do you feel like that's more of a confidence thing on those harder sections that you like, you know, it's hard and you're trying to be a little more careful?
Yeah, I'd say some of it's confidence, some of it's also like the feeling of you know you're good enough to do it, and once you do it, it's finally over. Sort of feeling like getting over the hurdle. There's a lot of maps that I like. I feel like I could do. I know it's in my grasp, but I just kind of get either a mind blocked or I would say just kind of I kind of get sheepish around the hard parts that I know I can hit because I've hit them before without FC. Uh, but with FC, it just gets like 10 times harder. It's definitely just a mindset thing. I think what I do specifically nowadays to avoid that is just to tell myself that it's going to happen eventually. The FC is going to happen eventually. You just have to keep at it. It's okay if it doesn't happen this time. Like, um, you just gotta grind through it and put the reps in because like one of these days, uh, you'll never like. I feel like that day when you finally get it, you'll never know when it really comes, but you'll know that'll happen one day. I think if you put in the work and put in the effort, and you're pretty diligent with how you want to improve, you'll eventually get the scores that you want. Is how I feel, anyways. Because at least for me, like you know how long I've been grinding Uta, and then one day, the day I FC'd Uta was actually when I was in call with both Chiv and the Pro 365 at 2 a.m. when he was screaming at me to miss in call while I was streaming it. And I wasn't at the time. I wasn't really taking the game seriously, or at least I was kind of on still on the down low, just trying to come back to the game. And that's when I got it. And then the time I got Troopers of the Stars, my first 700 that I've been telling myself all year that like I'm gonna get a 700 this year. No, I never expected it because one, it's good act, and I've never been known for good act, and two, it's a map that I played for maybe like twice ever, and number three is at the time I had pneumonia, so I wasn't really feeling my best either.
Oh
But
no.
within that week, I was, I put in the work, and here's the result. So you don't have to be in your best condition to set scores. You don't have to be in your best mindset. I feel, but I think the amount of time and dedication, you'll eventually like reach the goals that you want to reach. Is how I look at it, anyways.
Yeah, that expectation aspect of it, and particularly, I feel like I've sort of adopted a similar mindset where it's like, I sort of tell myself, especially when I'm grinding for scores, that like you just have to choke your way up to the scores that you want.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like being like sort of expecting that, so to speak, like expecting like every time, let's say it's like a 1000 combo map and your personal best is 800. Once you pass that and you're like on that run that is like better than
Yeah,
you've done before, you sort of you what's going through your head isn't like, wow, I hope this is the run. It's more
yeah.
like
It's more like this
I'm
is pretty
making
good.
progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that. I think that's a way better way to approach the game. It's like don't look at it as like, man, I failed the one chance I had.
Yeah.
Like I've had that before. I've ran into that pit where I've like, um, send in life when I missed the very last note. I was like, that was my one chance. It's over. I can't do it again. But now, nowadays it's like, okay, well, now I'm good enough to finally hit the ending consistently. Now I'm good enough to finally hit the start and not be mind blocked on the middle. That's good. I'm a lot more satisfied with that. Like the raising the skill floor in the map, as well as showing that you've grown a lot. Really helps, I feel.
Yeah, and
Like, yeah.
just sort of showing that it is possible.
Yeah, it is possible. It's like now I'm at the literally one note away from an FC, and I know it's possible. So I feel like a lot of like satisfaction that I'm no longer, mind blocked on the map, or like I'm no longer like capped at only like a certain combo or miscount or something like that.
I feel like it was Rafis who said something like every choke is just an opportunity to get better accuracy.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm not really an accuracy player, so I can't really say that. But I'd say every choke that you have before, like, say, a hard part is like an opportunity to practice the hard part. I'd say. Um, it's like I think I've noticed it a lot lately, especially when I've been grinding streams. Is that the amount of misses or the quality of play isn't like really that indicative of your improvement. It's kind of hard to explain, but I feel like there were some days where I felt like horrible or like I wasn't playing as well. But whenever I would set scores, I would look at them as, hey, at my worst, like I'm still like in the middle of the pack today, or like I'm getting more consistent at this one thing. I look at the small victories instead, and then it kind of like those baby steps kind of accumulate to like setting good scores, rather than like going on like for a session today and being like, today I will FC XYZ. It's more like, today I will, practice XYZ, and hopefully, like in the long run get better at it. It's like,
Yeah, I think having that sort of broader scope, like vision, or like I guess longer term perspective on your sessions, that it's not just about like getting some results in this one session and then just kind of grinding for
yeah.
those. It's more like to like each session is like a smaller part of the big picture where you're just kind of grinding and practicing.
Mhm.
And I feel like that expectation aspect is something that you do a pretty good job with. I feel like, I mean, even going back to your Tome score, it's like your expectation wasn't like, oh man, this is the one run that like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
The,
uh, right?
yeah, it wasn't really I wasn't thinking like, hey, I like when I set this play, like this is gonna be insane. Like I'm gonna just suddenly become the best player in the world, sort of deal. Like I never thought of that. I was just thinking like, I just want to practice my aim, and I just want to improve skill cap. It's something that I've always liked doing. And even to this day, it's just kind of like the method that I've used to improve.
And even towards the end of the map, it wasn't like, oh man, I hope I don't miss. It was you almost expected to miss. You actually
Yeah,
expected to miss.
I kind of expected to miss. Like after I hit the hard part, I was like, wow, that was insane. That was good. That was good. I was like really happy, and like when looking, since I didn't know the rest of the map, I was kind of just like, if I miss, it's okay. Like I'm really already satisfied with the play I have, and so I didn't really get nervous because I was already satisfied with the play, I'd say.
Okay, that specific nerve control, I guess I would call it strategy. I realized, so I use that strategy relatively often as well,
Hmm.
but it was so subconscious to me that like I never realized, because I made, especially throughout like the last like year and a half or so, I made a lot of like videos like answering people's questions and talking about like different skill sets and my thoughts on them, and that strategy never came to mind, even though like it in the end I realized that like that's actually what I do for nerve control.
Yeah, it's hard to like realize. I think over time I realized that that was the way to go, because I kind of went into the rut of just being so down on myself when I'd get a one miss or something like that. But I'd fail to see like the bigger picture of like I definitely am improving, sort of deal, or like I should be satisfied with this play because it's like definitely an improvement. Um, Over time, like I feel like it's hard because you do it subconsciously. I feel like that's something that happens with either through experience or just kind of personality and your like starting outlook on the game. Um, so I don't definitely don't blame you, because I feel like a lot of people, especially now, I feel like a lot of people with like, now that we have bots to like show off our scores easier, and the community's now more intertwined, I feel like there is a growing obsession of comparing yourself to others. And also of like like not competition, but like kind of like one upping someone. I feel is a lot more common, especially like now with the community. Because back then, there was Discord was new. You didn't really care about scores unless you like actively search through Reddit or like word of mouth. Um, so there was a lot less. There was a lot less on like your shoulders to perform. I'd feel at least compared to like nowadays where if you set a good score like everyone's gonna see or like you can show it off to a lot of people or if you're suddenly like you're doing an improvement spike like you'll know that more people have eyes on you compared to like before where like when I started getting my improvement spike it's like maybe one or two people knew. I was happy I should like talk to like my private group of friends about it. And that was pretty much it. I didn't really get too much besides the one accusation. That was funny. Shouts to Principe for posting that one or whoever posted it. I don't know who posted it, but that was funny to hear. But yeah.
Speaking of like where the community has like, or like, I guess where the community thrived, so to speak, especially throughout like 2015 when you mentioned that you were like getting a bit more recognition within the Canadian community. Where exactly did that community thrive and live exactly?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really know. I think from what I've heard from Kyle is a lot of it was just a group of friends because the old friend group of like Azer, Ignite, these are like all the top Canadian players have their own like separate like Skype call or TeamSpeak, from what I know.
Okay, yeah.
Don't quote on me on this because like this is only through like word of mouth and like but my memory's a little hazy. But I think they have their own little private group and a lot of like interaction done at least with the like no name people like say like me at the time were just done through spectating each other and or just randomly adding each other on Skype, that sort of deal. Like um a lot of the community at the time, at least in Canada, was kind of broken. I feel it was a lot harder to enter like the group circle.
I
I'd
feel
say
like
so.
spectating in OSU and meeting people that way is sort of a lost art.
Yeah, it's definitely a loss. It is definitely a lost arc. What's also lost is the little comments on the spectating
On
when
the
you
beat
can,
maps?
yeah, on beat maps. That's a loss. That is the saddest loss that I've ever like experienced.
Oh
I
no.
miss seeing them. I miss seeing like the Blue Dragon play where everyone's spamming comments like it's like a Nico Nico video. Oh, those are so good.
Man, that sounds so wholesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember this too. I mean, some unpopular maps they were so like distracting. They would just cover the actual map, and you couldn't
Yeah.
even see them. But like,
But you can disable them if you want. But
yeah,
I think they add to it. I think they add like the hype, you know?
the like you'd like watch a replay because I mean even back then like watching scores through YouTube was like not as much of a thing. Like if someone got a
Yeah.
cool score, you would go log into OSU and watch the replay.
Yeah, and watch it yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I kind of miss that feeling. I don't think it's like at the fault of replay YouTube channels, that sort of
no,
stuff,
no,
but it's more like because Discord or like means of communication is now more intertwined to like third party apps. Uh People don't usually use the actual medium of OS2 to communicate with each other, which I think is a shame. Like it's so there it was like a wild time of just like just DMing like a top player or like randomly spectating them and then them saying hi to you or just meeting someone in like multiplayer has been a lot more different, especially because like host rotate bots are now like the norm, I feel, of like
yeah.
multiplayer lobbies. Like back then you could just join a random lobby and just play and just talk. People, I feel like, were a lot more talkative in multi lobbies, and nowadays people are just silently playing. I'm guilty of this as well, but yeah, definitely the community has definitely shifted from the actual OSU platform onto other things. And that makes kind of I feel the new players, I'd imagine the new players kind of feeling a little like not like left out, but I feel like it's a lot more intimidating. Just a lot more intimidating to at least get to know other players, I'd say.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that. And man, host rotate bots in multi. So I had never played a lobby with them, but one time I was just, this was like very like a couple days ago. I was in a call with someone randomly, and I was like, "Yo, you should play multiplayer." And they're like, "Okay."
Mhm.
So they quick joined to a host rotate lobby, and I was just like, man, man, I was like, I felt I think in that moment I felt a little bit of boomer within me.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I didn't even know how it works exactly.
Yeah, me too. I was so lost. Every map that they post is like a new map that you've never seen before in your life. I think what was novel about the old community was like a lot of maps that people picked were kind of common because there wasn't really, mapping kind of a lot more in a primitive state. A lot of the popular maps were a lot more, they were picked a lot more often. I'd say so. And nowadays, it's you post a map and then it's just kind of something random. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because I am actually just a boomer, but nowadays it's weird to think about. But I feel like nowadays, uh, there isn't much there isn't much difference between playing multiplayer, um, and playing solo nowadays. It's just a means of getting like new maps, I feel. Whereas before it's like you play multiplayer to play with like random people, meet people, be competitive, play fun maps that, everyone knows and just like meme around a lot. It's a lot more lighthearted back then compared to now.
Yeah, speaking of which, that sort of culture of like just hopping in a random multi and like actually meeting people, I feel like the best story I can think of for that is how Hot Girls was made. Like basically the
Oh
server,
yeah, Monko
yeah,
server.
yeah, the server
Yeah.
that Monko 2K made with. So it was like a random multi lobby with him, Fangzy, and Tony, who is named Legend Crazy Man at the time. It was just a
Mhm.
completely random multi lobby, and then I think Monko was just like, "Do you guys want to play a tournament?" And then they were like, "Okay," and so they like made a team for some 4v4, and that like started like this huge like
Yeah.
it changed. I think it changed the direction of so many people's OZ careers.
Yeah, I think I was in that server for a little bit too for the same purpose of like ping tournaments. Yeah, no. I definitely think maybe it's because communities now are kind of more established and a lot of like OSU personas are a lot more like their audience is a lot more like established as well. Like top players at the time, like you never saw Ruruchi having his own Discord server and him interacting a lot with the community besides like the odd like Osu forum post or like probably messaging through Skype or something random. Like he didn't have like huge servers where he would ping everyone, be like, "Hey, I'm streaming, guys." That didn't exist. That didn't exist, and so a lot of players were kind of had to resort to all mass spectating him or word of mouth of like through multiple lobbies like, "Hey, have you seen XYZ play?" Like it was insane. Or watching the old tournaments back then, like watching Ruruchi and Anti Beat was like so crazy to me. Watching this guy just go with specifically image material when he almost sent like the FC. I think he got like an S rank or something crazy like that. Like in multi, I thought that was insane. And watching the community just like all like collectively like go off on that like tournament performance. As a random who wasn't really connected to anyone, I still felt connected to the OSA community. Uh, I don't feel like I would really get that much anymore. But maybe it's because uh, a lot of my experience in communities have been tied to the past, and nowadays I'm a lot more. I'd say I keep a lot more to myself rather than like past me, who was a lot more open to like going out of my way to talk to people, that sort of stuff.
It's hard to say if it's a culture change
Or
or if it's
think
like a
yeah,
personal
I don't know if it's
change.
I don't know if it's a culture change or it's a person change, but I don't know. In my opinion, I think it's a lot more easy to talk to people back then compared to now. Um, especially like when I look at how at least top players or at least a lot of people how they interact uh with random messages in specific. Like if I randomly messaged, like say I started getting to know Chrono Trigger a lot because I'd randomly message him after he messaged me randomly one time because of my profile picture. That's how we started meeting. It's because I had a funny profile picture, and he
Oh,
messaged me about it. Um, I'd start, and then he would reply back earnestly. Like he would actually like reply back, talk about like his day, that sort of stuff. Same thing happened with just meeting all the I think all the people that I have now over the years. Like I don't think that would kind of fly in today's environment. Like, I don't think if I messaged a random top player that they would, strike up like a conversation, talk about life with me randomly, like who's like a nobody. It's maybe because I feel like the number of like people randomly talking to each other is a lot bigger
oh,
because there's
maybe.
a lot more like the population is so much bigger that like um they probably like top players probably get so many random messages or something. It's probably more of a hassle rather than like yeah, I'll take some time off. Or maybe it's because everyone's just all they do all that talking through Discord instead. I'm not too sure, but I don't know. I'd like to think it's a mix of both, but to me at least the community has changed like a lot, especially for new players.
That reminds me of that screenshot you were talking about Ruruchi a little bit, and I think this is sort of the culmination of everything that we were talking about. But like when you mentioned like when Ruruchi's playing some map, and like it's basically word of mouth, and everyone goes in the Osu client to spectate.
Yeah.
There's this old screenshot. I'll put it in the live chat, and I'll put it on the screen. But basically, this is Ruruchi playing Pensamento DT, and literally everyone that was online, like pretty much every top player, was just spectating him in game.
Yeah. that
And
sounds about
yeah,
That sounds about right. That was insane. The spectating raids were like insane. Nowadays, a lot of people are streaming on Twitch too. That's a big reason why spectating
yeah,
I feel has died down.
right.
It's like, and people just watch these streams. But I don't know. I think there's something magical about actually like being there in person on the client, watching it live in
Yeah.
chat in hashtag spectator with everyone. I think that was I don't know. Maybe it's the boomer in me talking, which reminiscing of the old days.
I wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier, talking about picking maps in multiplayer and
Yeah.
like the map culture. And I remember you had a very specific strategy with maps that you made.
Oh yes. Oh, I was gonna mention it, but I saw okay. I when I first started mapping and making maps, I would always pick my own maps when it went into my when it was my turn to pick a map. Because I don't know. I think at the time I was really proud of my own maps. And also because either A, like back then when tournament warm-ups were kind of the norm, I would pick a map that I would make specifically for warm up for our
Oh,
team.
oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, or I just wanted my maps to be more well known. I'd say they were. I think they were. To be honest, I don't think Spider Dance would have been as successful as it was if I didn't spread it around through random multiplayers. Because because I was just like kind of random at the time, and no one really uh, knew knew the map or the song that existed. But I'd imagine like I'm not gonna lie, like when the day after I'd spam it in multiplayer in a bunch of multiplayer lobbies, I would see the heart number go up, and I was like, "Oh, this is working. This is free advertisement." So I don't know if you're ever looking for like, I don't know if that would fly nowadays though. Like that's weird to think about
I
because I
mean,
don't know.
I'm sure it would.
Think so?
Yeah, I mean, just as much as it would back then.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, one thing I can say is that unranked maps they didn't have play count trackers back then. So like you
yeah.
couldn't see
You can
like
only tell from the heart number. Like you
yeah.
can't tell how much it got played. That was so yeah.
I think the map that you that like sparked the strongest in multiplayers was probably Econite Borderline, which was
Yeah.
named I Love Fleslin at the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love Fleslin. That was insane. Like that whole map set and how it came to be. It's just I was mapping it, and then Josh and Fleslin were like, I want to make diffs, and they just made 8-star monstrosities. And I think it was a really hard map at the time.
Yeah, it
Definitely.
was.
So everyone just like playing it, and that's how it like kind of popped off. And then the whole meme of I love like Fleslin Aoyuki. Uh, I feel it kind of popped off from that too. I don't know. It's just little stories and like little like memes like that. Kind of making a splash into like the whole Osu scene was kind of like it was kind of fun to do. I don't know if it's like popular now, but like Zola Flask is like one that was really popular within like through us, I'd feel,
Oh
for a
yeah,
long time.
the
And then
emote.
same yeah, the emote like everyone liked using. Um I I think it's uh a lot harder for like little small communities like us at the time to make like a big splash on the Yosu scene. I think that's also like a lot of the memes nowadays are kind of dictated through like really popular things. Like
That's true.
yeah. So it's kind of weird because now I feel since the audience is so big, the population of players are so big, you can't help but just split into kind of like cliques and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Man,
It's
but
like back then it was like elementary school, now it's like high school, you know?
oh no.
Elementary school, like everyone just played with each other and no one really cared. Now it's high school and everyone's like on their own little like clique and stuff, meeting new friends. That's kind of how it feels, to be honest.
That's actually a really good analogy. Oh my god.
Hmm.
So, progressing through the story a little bit, I think 2016 is when things really started to pick up. But
Yeah.
can you touch a bit on your first tournament experiences that
Oh
was
yeah.
around in 2015?
Yeah. After I set that to my score, um and I started getting more recognition within like like people started like messaging me a lot more. I started getting more invested in the multiplayer aspect of Osu because at the time I was still mostly still like a solo grinder. And I just randomly clicked the tournament tab one day. I've kind of found it through the forums. I was just looking through the forums because I've never seen like a forum or anything in my life. I didn't know what these things were.
The
It's like, oh my
forums,
god,
even back
yeah,
then?
the forums. I've never clicked them. I never clicked them
Oh,
before,
oh,
or I never clicked them on any site, like or any game. So I wasn't really too familiar. And then I just randomly clicked the tournament tab, and I saw a tournament. It was like, please enjoy tournament hosted by Megatron is Bad, or at the or Josh, I guess now.
yeah.
And I saw it. I was just conveniently in the rank range of like 1.1k or something like that. I was on the upper echelon of like the rank range. And I was like, oh, I don't really play tournaments, but I'd be pretty high ranked for this tournament in specific. So like, let's just sign up as a, because I saw like people were commenting, looking for team. They posted like their information and stuff, and I saw one player who I just literally looked through, scrolled, and found the highest ranked player I could find, and that person was a player named Aoyuki. Uh, and I messaged him in game, and I was like, "Hey, wanna like team up for this? I saw you were looking for a teammate." And he said, "Sure." And then we found our third player who was Num. I forgot the digits in his
Num
name, but
5119.
yeah, yeah. That was our third player, and we formed a trio, and we did pretty well, I'd say. The tournament had, I think it started off as a live system still, so it's always been a live system, um, where every time the lowest score in the lobby would lose a life, and the team uh would win when the opposing team lost all their lives on the specific slot they're in. And that was really interesting. Uh, and I think we got fourth losing to Laser and someone else. I think it was Sally's team that we lost to at the
That
fourth.
sounds right. I think Sally was playing with Laser.
Yeah, and that's who we lost to at the time. But fourth was pretty good. I remember telling myself this, like, fourth is, pretty decent. And I think we did pretty good. And apparently Josh thought so as well, the host, because then he DM'd me about playing for a certain team that included certain players.
Oh.
And I, I was like, sure, I'm totally down. It was another like rank 1K restricted, and I think that's when you know, we met up with you. I'd say because I don't know if we played one before that, but we definitely played SMT together at the very least as that squad first. SMT being the monthly tournament that would happen every month. I
Yeah.
remember playing with that squad. Which is crazy. Talking about SMT, like a lot of top players at the time actually started playing from SMT. Like Bartek, I met Bartek through SMT. I played Recat back then through SMT. Um, just a lot of like a lot of top players nowadays grew up kind of at the same time as me. At least in the tournament experience department through those monthly tournaments. But yeah, eventually, Josh kind of rounded up people. I got Aoyuki back on. Num ranked up to like 3, 4 digit or 2 digit around there, like three that range. So he couldn't really play anymore. On We needed a replacement because I forgot one player dropped out from our team. And Josh brought over. I don't know if it was Squeeble or who, but that's when we introduced you to the team. I feel is when you showed up to our little Skype group chat. Uh, at the time, I think
Yeah.
I think that's the story of how like it became to be. And then shortly after, like we made our team and stuff, we swapped over to Discord for the first time. Is when kind of the Discord shift happened. I feel.
Right. At the time, like everyone was using Skype. Everyone was using
Yeah,
Skype.
everyone's using Skype.
If it wasn't Skype, it was TeamSpeak, but I feel like that was a
Mhm.
little less popular. Like it definitely everyone used Skype.
Yeah, I'd say.
And yeah, I think that story. So going back to that first tournament you played, you said it was a tournament named Please Enjoy Tournament. That was
Yep.
Last Man Standing. And the host of the tournament, and this is another culture thing, I think, but like the like reffing was a lot less like automated and like kind
Oh
of
yeah,
like
it was a lot
rigid.
more casual. Like I was a player and I was refing at the same time.
Yeah, that too.
As a player. Uh, and that's how I got to like add because Josh was looking for staff, and I was like, I want to try staffing too. So I messaged him on Skype and stuff. And I remember I started talking with Josh because I had another friend named Josh at the time, and I accidentally messaged Megatron is bad, thinking it was the other Josh. And then I
Oh,
just started up the conversation after that, trying to
oh
play it
my
off like it
god.
was cool. I was like, oh shoot, what do I do? And that's how we started talking a little bit more. And then how I got invited into like teaming with him eventually.
Oh, so it was an accident.
It's an accident that me and Josh started. Like originally, he invited me to play afterwards, but I originally only started talking to him because of an accident.
Oh my god. I
Yeah,
see. Okay, that's I did not know that part of the story. But yeah, so Megatron is bad, aka Josh, who I think we'll just refer to as Josh. But
yeah,
he was the host of that tournament, Please Enjoy Tournament, and then you, I think he mentioned because I think I've heard a bit of the story from his perspective too, and that he mentioned that like he like even though you guys like didn't win the entire tournament, like he recognized that you guys were like playing pretty well, and he was surprised because he had never heard of you guys before, and so I think that was really where he was like, dang, I could like I want to play some tournaments with these people, right? So it was like him, and then he invited you and your teammate Aoyuki to
mhm,
join in a 4v4 tournament. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
and
so.
yeah, we were building. So I think you were starting to build a team, and you made a Skype group.
Yeah.
And this was like right in the shift where most people were switching over to Discord.
Yep.
Where, speaking of which, by the way, tournaments at the time, like since there was no Discord and you couldn't just like get everyone Skype and get them in a group chat, like there were no group chats or servers or anything for tournaments. Like you would have to go to the forum, and every week the tournament organizer would reply to the original forum post with the next round's information and map pool and things like that.
Oh yeah, that was insane.
And the
That was
match
crazy.
results were posted on the forums and as a reply to the original forum post.
Mhm, mhm.
So
And yeah,
yeah,
looking for teammates was a lot more different too, because everyone had to do like a looking for team post instead of like, just like asking around in the server. Like
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
looking for team, here's my skill sets, that sort of stuff. Here's my Skype or whatever if you're interested. That sort of stuff. So advertising was also done on the forum post.
So so then Josh sort of rounded out, got grabbed like you and Aoyuki, and you made a Skype group at first, and you were discussing different people to invite. Oh, and Num, I guess as well. Num was also
Mhm.
there, and so my perspective of this situation is that I had met Num through the United States Cup that happened a couple months prior,
Oh
and
yeah.
got canceled after like one weekend, but it lasted long enough for me to meet Num. We had played one match,
Okay.
and I guess Num thought that I like played decently well enough. And I was also in the rank range. I was like 3K at the time. So yeah, and I like never really played tournaments, but then Num invited me to play with you guys because you were looking for more people because it was a 4v4, so 8-man
Yeah.
roster.
8-man roster.
So you invited me to that Skype group. At the time, Josh was suggesting that you guys make a Discord server instead of Skype.
Mhm.
And I think you guys were like not really sure, like what's this Discord thing? And
Yeah,
so
me and Aoyuki literally made Discords specifically for joining the server.
I think Josh mentioned that you guys made guest accounts. So on Discord at the time, you could make a guest account
Yeah, you
where
could.
it's like a one-time session account, and that's what you guys used at first before you actually made your actual
Own
accounts.
accounts, yeah.
But yeah, so that was when we made that server, and we started inviting more people to it. Or sort of like the team, and specifically the tournament you guys were signing up for was one called TOST 2. It's called the Wagner's Osu Summer Tournament 2. And then during registration, so that tournament, they expected to get like 64 teams or something.
Mhm.
And then only 10 teams signed up. And so they just
Oh,
canceled the tournament.
oh my god, I don't remember this. This is crazy. Like
Yeah.
I'm relearning the lore, but I do remember Num actually inviting you into it. I think, but we still decided we wanted to play together. So I think we looked for the next big tournament to play together. I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
how it
yeah.
went.
And
Yeah.
the next tournament was Z Tournament 2016.
Oh yes.
Yes, that was in summer of 2016. So we used basically the same roster,
Mhm.
except I think Num had ranked up past that point.
Yeah.
So we replaced him with Zelda 101.
Ooh, yes.
Oh,
The legendary, the legendary. Ooh, the legendary. Did we have Beezer on at the time
oh,
on that
wait.
team?
Yeah, I'm comparing the rosters right now. Okay, Josh actually didn't play Z Tournament 2016 with us.
I think he coached, or like he was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
He was definitely around during like he was still like active around the time.
we got Zelda 101 and Beezer, aka Ramen Otaku, who is actually, I mean, this is like maybe small world or what have you, but Beezer is the same person as Ramen Otaku, who was that very, very first inspiration for you.
Yeah, dude. When I saw him, I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane, dude!" I was like, when I first like joined the team, and I saw that he joined the team, I was like fanboying a little bit because this is the player that I first saw when I first started playing the game, and this is the player that I kind of wanted to be like. And at the time, Beezer's notorious for being a D ranker, or at least having like insane low AC, but a really good aim. And he was definitely like, despite me, I think being higher ranked and probably setting higher ranked plays, he was still like, even at that time, like in that era, he was definitely by far one of the best aim players, at least in 4 digit, by like a mile. Like it wasn't really that close. So I
Oh,
was
yeah.
still like fanboying over him at the time when he first joined he was in our team.
I feel like the team also was sort of crafted mostly from people that we met in multiplayer lobbies, or I guess
Mhm.
Josh in particular. Like
Yeah.
the people that you thought to invite were people like it was because of like people you met in multiplayer. Like also on that team was Ming 3012,
Oh yes. Oh, the
and
legendary.
he was someone he played a lot of multi at the time. He was also in the 4-digit rank range, but he
Mhm.
was like obviously really high skill cap. He was known for having all D ranks, like intentionally getting like 66% FCs on
Mhm.
all his top plays. So his skill cap was really good. He was really consistent in multi as well. And yeah, so that was basically the start. And then from there, we just played a bunch of tournaments basically with the same team. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, what I guess do you have any sort of overall like thoughts or experiences through like your early tournament like I guess I mean we were playing pretty actively at the time. I think especially
Yeah.
come 2017 we were like relatively experienced with like how tournaments kind of are structured, and we had a sort of name for ourselves, especially having one Z tournament 2016, which was the one in summer, and
Mhm.
then we were sort of
And then we ran
oh
it back for winter, I
you know,
feel.
what else we played at the time was Osu Global Tournament, OGT
Oh
number
yes, I
three.
remember that one. And that was like really hard to play because we were versing like Beezer branched off to another team.
Oh
To
yeah,
play.
yeah,
So we had to
yeah,
verse them in the grand finals, and it was kind of like the D rankers versus like us. Like we weren't really established D rankers, but we were good players, I'd say. That was kind of like a nice test to have. It was really fun. I remember that tournament in specific.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think what Um, any thoughts? I would say it was a lot of fun, obviously. I think our team atmosphere, though it was serious, was really joking. Maybe it's because and I say this in like retrospect, like we were probably a lot like better than most of the teams at the time. I just like through I think what I realized after playing our first tournament, Z tournament, is that like, oh my god, like why are like Ming and Beezer in specific on this team? These guys are like both like World Cup like level OWC level players.
You-
And I kind of like maybe I guess like because our team was so powerful, I guess we also had a lot of room to just kind of like joke around and like be friends. Uh I guess.
Do you remember
Because we stuck
the?
around for like a long time, right? We stuck around for like a year together, just playing on the same team, or like over like a year or two.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true. I mean, we just like, I mean, from that point, I'm pretty sure that Discord server was like always active, even if there was like some times where we weren't actually playing tournaments together.
yeah, we just like played to like Minecraft or not Minecraft, but like other stuff. I don't know, like a league or something random,
Yeah,
or just like sat and called together and talked. Like it just became like over time through playing tournaments together, that became more of like a hangout with friends server rather than
yeah.
like a tournament server. We kind of just played tournaments for fun. Granted, maybe it was a lot more fun because we won, but to be honest, it didn't really matter if we won or lost because both a lot of memes were born and also like I don't know, um, just a lot of like good memories were probably formed back then.
I remember specifically, like, so in Osu Global Tournament. Wait, no, wasn't it? I think it was probably Z Tournament 2016. But
Mhm,
people, so in those tournaments were score v1 at the time. By the way, like everyone was, like every tournament was score v1, except for the World Cup, basically.
mhm.
But yeah, so I remember someone. Do you remember this analogy someone on like another team made of like the umbrella, where like Ming was like
Oh,
the umbrella and then Beezer's
that
the
was
umbrella
Squeeble during
handle.
the interview. That was Squeeble. I feel
Wait,
like that
oh
was
really?
that was Squeeble's interview during 2016
Oh, I
winter.
thought it was
Yeah,
like someone from another team who
no,
like
no, no.
made
That
that.
that was when we won Z Tournament 2016 winter. Granted, that was probably like at least in the early days, like my most favorite tournament ever. I think you could say that too. I like for the both of like all of us in that team because we worked really hard for that goal,
Yeah. Well,
and
are
we
you
were
talking
versing
about
our
Z Tournament Winter?
yeah winter.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, Z Tournament winter. Uh, and that's after we finally won. They did an interview with Squeeble, and that's when Squeeble did the analogy. that
Wait,
ever.
but that tournament we didn't have Ming. I think you might be thinking of the summer Z tournament because we won in the summer, and
Oh,
then the winter one came out, and we were
oh,
like the
maybe,
defending
maybe
champions.
it might have been. It was. I definitely was one of the Z tournaments. It was
Yeah.
definitely one of the Z tournaments.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, we won that tournament, and then after the grand finals match, the commentators asked if any of us from the winning team wanted to do like a post game interview. And so Squeeble went up. I actually, admittedly, so the VOD was never saved,
Mhm.
and I don't remember what happened, but like I wasn't able to like tune into it. But I just remember you guys being in voice, just like laughing like crazy. This
Yeah,
is Squeeble's
we were
interview.
laughing so hard.
Oh my
Oh, it was
god.
so funny. I
But yeah.
man, there's so many story like little stories that we had. Remember like I forgot what tournament it was, but I was playing like League at the time. Like you were like grand final. Wait, was it? It might have been Z tournament winter, but it was like grand finals in like an hour, guys. I'm like, okay, time for League.
Oh
I
yeah.
started, I just played a League game. I finished right before like grand finals started.
Oh my
Or
god. I
or
remember
like
that.
remember like OTT where we had grand finals and then you were like, guys, you want to play? And I was like, I think I just woke up and I was like, okay, guys, I'll play. Like joined the
Yeah.
call.
Yeah. I remember that. Oh my
I think
god.
it was just so. I think the dynamic of like tournaments. It's maybe it's still like that in like the lower digit scene, but um, it was a lot more casual. At least how I played them. Just playing with friends. It was more like playing with friends and like warm up and then like what are we picking, that sort of stuff. It was just like laughing. How was your day? Waking up, playing League together afterwards, that sort of stuff.
I
I
mean,
think.
I think it's just you to be honest. I mean, there's a little story that happened right before this interview started, where
Uh-huh.
it was 5 minutes before the interview time, and you sent me a screenshot of you in a TFT game.
Oh,
So I think
oh yeah.
maybe it's just you.
Maybe it's just me. Like, well, that's how like going on to like another like little branch. That's how I look at tournaments. It's like maybe it's people think of it like really serious and like as a way to like prove yourself, your skill, but I've always kind of looked at it as just a way to have fun. A way to maybe like do a little memeing with friends, a little trolling, but all in all, it's mostly just to have like actual just like fun with your friends. Similar story. I never have told this publicly to anyone, but our grand finals match in Kanyo Cup 2.
Oh yes, I do.
You
Thanks
know,
for reminding me.
I stayed up all night before playing grand finals.
Oh, I think I heard that actually. I
Yeah,
remember vaguely.
I remember messaging Mario to be like, Mario, who's the Pro 365. I was like, remember we showed up in call. I was like, Mario, I haven't, I haven't slept. Don't tell our team, but I haven't slept and I don't feel so good. And that's how we played grand finals. I didn't do my best, but we still won. It was like still like really fun. It's a funny story. Same
Oh
thing with
god.
Hippo Cup when I played with Nam. We thought we were gonna get smashed by the team like us or in like losers finals. We were versing like a Canadian team with like Waffles, Mario, like a pretty strong Canadian team, and we thought we were gonna get smashed, but uh, we all banded like I think there was only four of us, so we were like a four-man squad. Because no one else could show up. We got like kind of scheduling diff, but we just did our best, and we like started one man carrying like a bunch of maps, and then uh, we were just playing for fun. We weren't really playing for seriously, but we kept on winning, and we were just laughing and having a good time, not caring about the score, and then like popping off and hyping each other up whenever we did good. Uh, I think we weren't really too concerned about the win, but we were definitely enjoying like the little battles that we won along the way, or like laughing, looking back, like laughing at the little stories that happened mid tournament. Like remember versus Please and Spork in was it winter or summer of Z tournament? One of the two.
Not sure.
It's when we were like, I think it was winter because I think people were assuming we'd win, and we were just trolling, having a good time, and we started getting losing points. And then we troll picked like maybe one or two just for fun, just to pick maps we like playing, and then we lost. and then we were, just joking
Oh,
around, like we get the
yeah.
next one, and then we lost, and then we keep losing all the way to tiebreaker. Oh my
Are you
gosh.
talking about like in the first bracket stage?
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my god, I remember that. So here,
Um,
I have the challenge bracket. I can link it to you here. But we uh, let's see here. What was our team name in this bracket?
we
Uh,
were number 10th seed, uncompressed fury.
Okay, uncompressed fury.
Yeah.
So there is a team. Oh my god! So we were the defending champions of this tournament. We literally went like, USA in OWC this year. They lost 2 points to Israel.
Yeah, to Israel. Oh my god.
We went USA Israel mode, except we actually lost the entire match. And so, oh my god, it's so
Yeah, we
troll.
got Neko DS, and then we almost lost to Please and Spork on a reverse sweep. That was, the first two stages were like this. They were crazy, man.
Wait, yeah. Oh, y'all almost got
That's
reverse
what.
swept.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. How we were like laughing and joking around, and then we started sweating a little bit, like
Oh,
a little more and more. It's like we started losing more and more points because we
we,
were like really overconfident and we were just joking around.
I think Beezer like showed up to the match late, or like maybe he wasn't
Yeah.
there at that match. But I remember, so
No,
we
he
were
was there. He was getting mad. I remember.
he was in we were in losers bracket,
Uh-huh.
and there was this team that was also pretty good, but we got match against them in the second round of losers, and I think we were 0-4 or something, and it was
Yeah,
first to
we were
five.
0-4.
And then, okay, personally, I was relatively confident because I knew that like they didn't have any more maps to win, so I felt pretty confident. But Beezer was like, or at least like by the time we got to tiebreaker, I knew we were gonna win just because like we had high
Yeah,
skill cap. But
yeah.
I remember Beezer was like, "Dude, you guys went to 0-4 against this team, and we're in losers
Yeah.
bracket," and then we were like, "Oh god,
Yeah, then we were like, okay, shape up, guys. Let's take it home.
yeah,
And what we did, that life changing. If we lost there, oh my god, life changing Osu career.
that's
What
true.
would happen? It'd be so sad.
That would have
But
been so
no,
sad."
we won it. It was good.
Yeah, we did.
Clutch when it matters. I say.
Oh
Um,
god.
is there any other stories?
Yes, there is. In Konyo Cup, you mentioned that you stayed up all night and
Yeah,
like didn't sleep before the match. There was
yeah.
one map where so this was like during the transition to no fail,
Oh
using no
yeah.
fail during tournaments. And so a lot of tournaments still at the time is like if you guys all team failed, you automatically lost the map. And so
Oh, I remember this. Yeah,
there was
go on.
one map. It was like a stream map, called New and EU, the ranked one. I don't remember which div, but basically, like towards the hard part, everyone failed except you were still holding on. But like everyone
Yeah,
on, so three of your teammates failed, and then my team or our team
like
failed, and then
I was the only one left.
you were the only one left. I assume you were just mashing and just praying.
Oh no, no. Like I told I told my team that like, hey, I'll either SC or maybe choke the like mill part, but I've never actually failed the map before.
Oh, really?
Um yeah, but um it was the second stage. Like this was during bracket reset. When I messaged
Maybe.
like Mario in the first set, I was too tired to play like, anything. So I wasn't even like I could barely play that map at the start. This is why we either didn't pick it or you guys might have banned it. One of the two.
No idea.
But no idea. But yeah, I could only play it during like luckily we only played it during second set. And I distinctly remember being like, hey, I'm warm enough to play this now. I'll be okay. And that's
Oh
why
god.
yeah. So I don't know. I think I had a knack for streams, but I didn't really like realize it because I was so focused on aim. But I think I was like decently good at them at the
Yeah.
time.
I think during the match I knew because I remember thinking like, dude, this guy stayed up all night and then is the only one who passed. Oh god.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I think I was riding high on the tiebreaker too that happened at the time because everyone kind of just went off.
Oh yeah. Dude,
Yeah,
I remember I'm pretty sure I have seen the tiebreaker. I got like 800 before the
yeah,
match.
I saw you running it back. I saw you SS it after. I was like, oh my god, this guy SS'd like right after too.
Yeah,
After the match.
and then I think I got like 380 or 400 in the actual match.
Yeah, in the
I was
actual
like, yeah, we
match.
lose. Okay, I
Uh,
remember. Okay, if from my perspective, the moment I knew we lost that match is the map called Jack the Ripper Hard Rock or Fremod,
oh
where
yes.
I played it Hard Rock and then IFC'd, and then after the map ended and I saw the score, we still lost, and I was like, oh okay, Yoxai probably like FC'd or something, and I checked and he got 500k. And then AJT also got like 500 or something. I was like, how did we lose? And I was like, oh my, at that moment, I
Oh,
knew it was doomed. It was just doomed.
I think when we started getting hyped is when we won Viva Happy DT.
That map was
When
so BS. Oh,
Yeah, when
nah.
Yogi's finally like get mashed to like eternity, like somehow like the gods just like like blessed him with combo,
Yeah.
and he just managed to squeak out a win. And that's when and then Conrad had to go to church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember we like that was part of our like picking strategy, which
Mhm.
was a mistake, I'm pretty sure, because we were like, okay, Conrad has to go to church soon. So let's like in case they pick a map that he would go in for, let's just pick it now so that like we at least have our best lineup for it. And
Yeah.
then we'll worry about other maps later. So we picked the tech map and then like I think at the break, like AJT was like still FCing and everyone else had no combo. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna lose this match. Well, wait, but I specifically remember because AJT was the player who would always mention that like cider streams make his game like
Yeah,
his game
yeah.
lag.
Yeah, I think that's why you guys picked it. It's even like before the map started, I was AJT was like, yeah, like I can get a good combo if I don't if my computer like is nice to me or laptop's nice to me. And I was like, we're all like, okay, it's okay, just go. It's fine. He can play tech better than all of us. And yeah, I don't know. He just got lucky.
Oh my god, that's so
There was
troll.
a lot of luck in that set. Like, definitely, we could have lost at like literally any pick. I'd say. But it was fun. I
Yeah.
think that was my very first win. That didn't have you on the
Uh,
team. I
yeah,
think.
that's true. And you almost did. I almost did have you on my team because it was draft, and
Oh yes,
you trolled.
I
Like
trolled.
you tried to invite
You
AGT to a
wanna?
different tournament, like the
Yeah.
day before, and then oh my god. Anyway,
Like, well, to be like for like for for context, like we were planning me and hubby were planning this like weeks in advance
okay,
of like.
so this is
Oh, you
so
want to say
Connie
it?
Cup. Connie Cup was a draft tournament where like you like take turns picking people for your team from like the people that signed up, and you wanted to be on my team.
Yeah.
So, and you didn't want anyone else to pick you. So you came up with this elaborate like story that like you broke your tablet and
Oh
you googled a
yes.
picture of like broken tablet,
Yes.
and like you posted a picture of like from Google of like a tablet with a hole in it or something,
Yeah.
and you were like, yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to get a new one. But you didn't want your registration to get removed. You were like, yeah, I'll just don't remove my registration, just like as long as
Yeah.
no one
I'll
picks
play
me.
with mouse or whatever,
I'll play
and then
with
I.
mouse. And then I think on your user page you put like quit or something or like broken
Yeah.
tablet. And then the day before the draft, you message AJT like, "Hey, do you want to play this other tournament with me and like Habib and Aoyuki?" And then he was like, "Okay, I thought your tablet was broken though." And you were like, "Oh, I think I can get a new one soon." And I was like, "Oh my god, Connie Cup is ruined." Uh,
Oh, I didn't think about it. I don't know. I just wanted to play tournaments. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think I remember being like, wait, don't ask people to play until after Konyu Cup
Yeah,
draft. And
I
you were
think you've
like,
told me that. And I was like,
you're
I
like,
didn't real I
oh,
guess
too late.
too late. My bad. Oh, it was so good too because we would play at the time. We'd play weekly with each other, and when we were playing weekly, I remember just like I'd be in voice call and I'd be like, "Oh, playing with mouse is so hard," and I'd play with a mouse like purposely, and just like the
Uh,
whole time I was just complaining about like, "Oh man, playing the game so hard now. Like I don't know, I'm gonna into Kanyo Cup so hard."
oh my
Like
god.
the
But
elaborate ruse.
AJT, okay, it honestly came down to, okay, you
Mhm.
know what it really was? it was the
Yeah,
draft order and the fact
yeah.
that AJT wasn't a captain. But the first, who was the first captain? I don't
Yoke Spy.
remember.
Yoke Spy was
No.
first.
Yolkspy was second. I think it
Oh,
was like I don't remember who it was, but they picked Bob Schmurda.
oh yes, yes. Actually, you're right. Yes, the Bob Schmurda first pick.
So basically, every player expected AJT to be first pick because he was the strongest player that wasn't the captain. So whoever like randomly happened to get like the first pick of the draft was just gonna pick AJT, and their team would be so strong. And then the first captain picked Bob Schmurda. And then everyone was like, "What?" And then Yolkspy was second pick, and he was like, "Yep, I pick AJT." And then everyone was like, "Yep, GG." So Yolkspy didn't know. So okay, AJT basically finished the draft for Yolkspy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Yolkspy didn't know that your tablet. Yolkspy thought your tablet was broken, but
yeah.
AJT was like, "No, I'm pretty sure his tablet's fine because he invited me to play this other tournament." And so Yolkspy just picked you, and then because you were like, "Okay, everyone believes it. You can pick some other stronger players, and then you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
pick
That
me
was a whole
later."
elaborate plan. Yeah.
Oh my
We
god.
we wanted to pick Jensen and then like you could pick me afterwards, but
Yeah, I
oh my
did get
gosh.
Jensen. I
You did
got
get
Jensen.
Jensen. That was like I thought the plan was coming together. I'm like, okay, I'm next. I'm next. And then I just see Yoke's pie pick Alden, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
And then
Oh, and then a lot of things happened. A lot of things. I think a lot of your picks were
it was
taken
so
from you.
sad. It was so sad.
William Stetson, I think
I
that's
wanted to pick Will Stetson, and I thought I would be in the clear because not many people recognize him as a player anyway. But he
Mhm.
changed his username recently at the time to Egg Foo Young, and
I
I was
remember
like,
that.
I swear, I was like, definitely no one knows who this is. I was like, I need Will on my team. He's such a good hidden player. And then Trev picked Will. I was like, no way. I was like, I lose. It was so sad.
That was so sad, but still a fun turn. I think honestly, was Konyu Cup kind of the birth of draft tournaments? I don't know.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
a lot of people liked Konyu Cup like the very first iteration. So I'm not surprised when it started becoming a popular format. And I think still to this day it's like one of my favorite formats to play because not only do you get to like meet new players, you also get to like play with fairly balanced teams. Granted, the captains don't kind of make troll ones. I feel
right.
like there'll always be a couple stinkers, but for the most part, the teams are kind of balanced and it's kind of like fun.
Yeah, for sure. Same as Suiji.
Yeah, same thing. Well, Suiji is a little more volatile, but
That's
for the
true.
most part, yeah. Oh my gosh, you know what happened to my team in Pundis Suiji? The new Suiji that happened.
Oh no.
I got two D seeds who just didn't show up.
Oh no.
And we had to like FF and we barely got our D seed for the second match. Oh,
Oh no.
that was a little unlucky, but like stuff like that happens when it comes to Suiji style tournaments. I think you should go. I remember being on team with Bubble Man on one of the Suijis, and he said that this tournament should not be taken seriously unless you get to semifinals or higher. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty accurate way to look at it, I'd
Yeah.
say. It's mostly for fun until it isn't, then it's for keeps. I think that's a good way to put it. Um, if I had to say anything about my tournament thing, tournaments are a great way to meet people, I'd say. I don't know how accurate it is now, but at least back then, I think I met a lot of my friends through tournaments, at least in the Yosu scene. Um, a lot of like the people I started talking to, I just met through either matches, like both on our team or the enemy team, and through staffing or like map pooling, that sort of stuff, like the staff involved. If you're like a new player looking into, getting kind of close to the community, you don't necessarily have to be a good player. I'd say you can just kind of either you can go through staffing, like maybe as a ref or something, or just playing like on a casual team with a bunch of other people looking for teammates, and that's just kind of a good way to start. I definitely recommend. I'm kind of hesitant to actually recommend tournament play right away, but I definitely think it's a good way to, just get to know people.
Yeah, definitely agreed. I think that sort of like structured competitive environment, so to speak, where you're like regularly meeting back with your teammates and just kind of like having that place to hang out. And
Yeah.
it even like for the duration of the tournament, even if it's just like a random team where you don't really know them, like that tournament server becomes the place, like the team server that you have becomes that place where you share scores
Yeah.
and just talk about random stuff together and like just share random. So like throughout the duration of that tournament,
Mhm.
that's usually when like you're just like all hanging out, even like outside of matches. Usually, I feel like that it's sometimes there's teams where it's like you're only talking in the server for like
For like
match
the
stuff.
exclusive, yeah, the exclusiveness of matches. But I think, yeah, no, I agree. I think um, what's a lot, what's kind of undervalued is the fact that like when you play tournaments, especially with new people, is that you're just around like-minded people, people who want to play competitively and both enjoy the game and mostly enjoy improving. I'd say, uh, just being around those like-minded people can also kind of fuel you into your own improvement. I don't think I would play the game as long and play the game as regularly as I did if it wasn't for being, surrounded by like my friends, like my new friends that I met through UFRJD and that sort of stuff through other tournaments, and just being around them kind of like made me want to play the game more and more. Uh, I think maybe like I could see myself like I would always kind of think, what would I do if I didn't join tournaments? And a lot of me like would wants to believe that, I just push skill cap and be a top player that way. But I don't know. I don't know if I feel like, knowing me now, I might have just burnt out and just, not taken it as seriously, or never got that second like push, or been that committed to the game. Because even back then when I first before I first started playing tournaments, I wasn't really that committed to exclusively, getting better. Sure, it was fun improving really fast and seeing the fruits of like your labor, but like the walls on Osu start getting taller and taller. And the climb to overcome those walls starts taking longer and longer. And sometimes like you can only do so much on your own. That's why I don't want to say that I tournaments probably skill capped me as a player. Uh, because I think a big argument with what people say, like, no, don't play tournaments, play solo, is because um, for a lot of people, there's like this kind of like stigma that if you play tournaments, you're never gonna reach like the tip top, or like you'll never be like the top player. I don't think that. I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think I remember playing Osu multi in specific when yeah, Osu matchmaking with Minwoo, and we came across two Koreans, HDHRTT and someone named Karcher at the time, and we won. We smashed them pretty handily. Uh, and I asked to like add them as friends and stuff, and that he was I could tell Karcher was someone who really liked the competitive scene or a lot, and was like interested in playing competitive. And like look at him now, definitely probably the second coming of like Tuna, like South Korea's hope. But he was before that, he was just someone who really liked the competitiveness of the game. And I feel like, I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like that kind of fueled him to get better at the game. Um, so I don't think that tournaments necessarily can skill cap you as a player. So you shouldn't be scared of playing them. But I do think that they provide a really good environment for you, like a competitive environment for you to help push through the walls that you have and improve as players. At least that's what I think. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because you'll never see the world where I didn't play tournaments and instead focused on solo. But that's at least how I've reflected on myself. That's what I'd like to believe.
I feel like if anything, tournaments have been a really strong motivator to be like, dude, I suck at this skill set. I
Oh
need to
yes.
practice it so much, or I'm just gonna keep getting blasted.
Mhm.
Like it's it's
I
oh you can go basically,
I
but that's
feel
basically it.
oh yeah. I feel that was definitely your approach to it. I feel like when we first started playing, I could tell like uh you weren't exactly like the all arounder.
Oh
Like
no.
definitely you were definitely favored in like hidden and like like low AR that sort of stuff. I think you struggled a lot more on like the high AR or like the GT that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Harder, higher AR was always tricky. Basically, like the raw skill cap aspect. So
Mhm,
like
mhm,
DT was something I was really uncomfortable. Like I couldn't do anything above 10, like at all.
mhm. And by contrast, I was not strong on like the more like reading focused or the rhythmic focused maps. Uh, and I know your approach was, to get all rounded, but my approach was definitely just to sharpen my spear. On the other
Yeah,
hand,
yeah,
it's just to I feel like that's also kind of a valid way of being like a kind of pinch player, as in like a player who can always like play the slots that they're supposed to play, or like play to their skill sets at like a really high skill cap. That was kind of the player I kind of wanted to be. So I feel like there's more than one approach to it. Like, yeah, it realizes what you suck at, but you also realize what you're really good at. And then it's just a matter of choice on whether you want to spread out your skill set or you want to sharpen what you're already good at.
yeah. And it
Um,
depends on the type of tournaments you play. Because
yeah,
1v1 tournaments, you're just gonna like you need to
yeah,
balance your skill set. But for team tournaments, which I think honestly are the majority of tournaments, like you don't need to worry that much about being well rounded.
definitely. That's what teammates are for, just to see an alt map, see a hidden map. Oh, I'm out. See ya. Goodbye.
Oh
And
god.
I just let my team carry me. Yeah, I think looking back also on tournaments, uh, a big majority of matches, I'd like to say that helped with pressure, a lot, and kind of just expectations. Uh, you know, when I'm setting like a good tournaments, like I never expect to FC every tournament map I play nowadays, or I never expect to perform like at my absolute peak because I think it's impossible all the time. I think you should go into matches with like a nice and strong mindset, but you should also, have expectations on um how you're going to play. Like I think back then when I first started playing, I always like expected to play at my very best, and every time I would kind of drop the ball, even though I knew like I was like not at my best, where like I'd stay up all night or I'd just come back from league and I didn't really like practice at all. Um, and I'd still be disappointed. I'd still be disappointed that I didn't play that well. And over the years, it's kind of realized that I should be a lot more like, shot back down to reality. It's like, hey, uh, you don't need to expect yourself to play at your peak every single match. Like same thing with sessions. Every session, you shouldn't expect yourself to play at your absolute peak because those come and go at various days of the week, years, months. Like you'll never know. You'll never know how you're gonna play it on any given day, and you shouldn't. Uh, I think pushing yourself that hard and being that harsh with yourself, uh, kind of can be detrimental. At least I feel like it has been for me over the years. Was just like your path to improving.
I want to ask you about de-rusting a little bit because I know you've had
Yeah.
times where
Oh yeah.
you take some pretty long breaks. Well, do you have any like certain, not really strategies, but like ways that you go about getting yourself back up to speed?
Oh, this is great because I took another break and I just came back after like 2 weeks or something after like pneumonia. And then after pneumonia, I was mapping a lot for OWC. So I was kind of having my hands tied up with tournament mapping, and I never really got a chance to play until now. De-rusting is hard, especially when you surround yourself with like people who improve. I think just for some context, I think the best way to or a really helpful thing to improve is to surround yourself with like people of similar skill who are also striving to improve because I feel like the rivalry and just cheering each other on in like a healthy environment really helps. But coming back from a break and seeing the amount of progress that like all the people around you have done, and seeing you set back so far, it's really hard. I think it's just really demoralizing. Uh, you hit your absolute peak, or like when you're improving, and then you have to take a sudden break, whether it's like you want to do it or not, and coming back and you can barely like touch the maps that you were like handily grinding like a couple weeks prior. It's really hard. You feel like months or like even years at some points of your life grinding stuff have just been kind of, all for waste. And you're back where you started. And that's kind of like a really tall wall to uh hurdle through, especially when you want to go even further than you were previously. And the amount of time that you have to invest to get back to like a point where you can start improving is pretty long. I'd say maybe like for some people, at least for me, it's probably like a week or two actually of just straight like playing the game and slowly increasing like both stamina and speed and all that sort of jazz. Um, but if I had any advice for de-resting in specific, um, it's to be realistic. You're not going to be great the first, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sessions that you do. Uh, you got to realize that just play stuff that you can comfortably play, but maybe uh, you just play as regular warm up. I think for me personally, I like grinding like 190, 180 like dream maps or like aim maps, that sort of stuff. Just to get back into the swing of things. Uh I don't really expect myself to be the best player at the start or be back where I was anymore. I think if people know me, I'm still extremely harsh. Like I get pretty emo when I come back because I do get those feelings of, man, I was so like I am nowhere near where I know I can be. But to combat that, I think what a lot of people have told me is that you will get there. You'll get back there eventually. Like you can do it. I think the support from other people is really encouraging. I'd say. I don't think it's particularly the only way to get over kind of the initial hump of being of de-resting, but I definitely say just the encouragement of others and like knowing for the fact that like factually you will probably get to that point of your skill level given like a week or something, bar like nothing like happened to you, like maybe like an injury is different. Say like an injury would be something that maybe would take a lot longer, but you will get back to your skill level given like a week of playing, or you just have to be diligent and kind of have to like power through it. I do agree it's like a very like depressing or a demotivating point to be at, but I think just keep at it. I think you yourself know your skill, and you being frustrated is only because you know how good you are and what you can be, and you're just impatient that you can't reach it yet. Um, but I think that's also a good thing. I think that just means that for a lot of people that they have that drive to get better and they want to get better now. But just I guess just take your time. It doesn't happen right away. Is probably the biggest thing I could tell people.
I'm glad you mentioned the mental aspect of de-rusting because I feel like that's actually the hardest part
Yeah, it's definitely the hardest part. I feel.
and sort of the expectation shift of not being able to push yourself on all the same maps that you were challenging yourself on before. I remember actually this was very recently someone messaged me saying like, "Oh my gosh, I came back from a break and like I can't even, I'm missing on every 4-star map and pattern. Like, what
Mhm.
happened? What's gonna happen to me? Like, what is it? Is this the end of my OC career? Well, it wasn't that dramatic, but they messaged me about that, and I was like, I think that the best thing is like, well, first of all, recognize that like when you are de-rusting, the maps that you're playing are just going to be different from when you were at your peak. But
Mhm.
it's sort of like it's less about building that skill for the first time and more of just kind of like dusting it off, basically, or literally de-rusting. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so typically it's a lot faster. It's kind of like if you learned a subject in school a couple years ago and then you kind of
Yeah.
you've neglected it. You have to relearn everything, but it's all going to come back to you. And
Mhm.
so that I think the biggest thing there that I think is just have, being able to have fun with the game with those like lower star maps, or
Yeah.
like not really low star, but like lower than what you were playing before, and really just enjoying the game for what it is.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, having that sort of like support people that are there to like really keep you motivated to push past that rust and get yourself back up to speed is really really important.
Yeah. Uh, Personally, I like playing. What helps a lot is just playing songs that like I like listening to. That helps a lot. I think. Do you the one of the hardest things about this game is playing the game when you don't have fun.
Oh
Like
yeah,
when you start like I think for a lot of people de-rusting feels like a chore, right? But I think there's something like there's I don't know, there's something satisfying about de-rusting a bit because you kind of feel that sense of progression, like even though it's on a lower scale and not to your peak, it's just a slow feeling of like getting back into the swing of things. If you find like enjoyment in that, it will definitely help you in the long run. Just like uh, help you in the long run, given like you might have to take another break or something in the future, that sort of stuff. Just lear enjoying the process of like improving again. It's something that could be very beneficial, I feel.
I want to ask about the sort of like more general mindset lessons that you've learned. I feel like you even mentioned like even relatively little things like just grinding one map, like Marshmary, for example, or
Oh
like you
yes.
feel like you just sort of learned a lot from like a mental perspective. Are there any like major lessons you feel like, or even just minor lessons that you feel like you've learned through OSU that sort of apply like even outside from like a mental or mindset perspective?
Yeah. I think at least specifically for me, I've been surrounded by a lot of top players since I started the game, you know. At least in the competitive scene. Like I've seen players, you know, I've gone through that cycle of meeting players like you, for example. Um, I could list like a bunch of them: Trevor Asher, Ryu K, uh, Xylus, Zudi, Stoof. I could list everyone, like a bunch of people, uh, who've I've considered at least at some points to be similar skill levels to me, and just rise way past me. And over time, I think really back then, I'd be honest, I was pretty jealous. I was jealous of everyone's improvement over me over the years. At least back then, and it was really demotivating. I thought like maybe like this is as far as I can go, and like I think that really stagnated me in my confidence, at least that like you know if they if someone's randomly got the click and they've gotten into the zone, it's like why can't I, sort of deal. And I think old me, maybe like 2017, 16 me, used to just play it off as like, hey, you know I'm just playing for fun, I'm not really trying, this isn't my best, like I can be better than this. um and I played with that mindset all up until maybe like 2018, 2019. I don't know, something like that, where I kind of made the click switch because I was exclusively a 1K D ranker, I'd say, for like a majority of my play time, and making the switch of like, hey, I need to stop making excuses and I need to push myself. And so I did. And now, now I'm saying stuff that even I never thought I could probably do in the past me. And that kind of woke me up, I'd say, in that I can't be the next coming of like, I don't know, Ryuke. I can't be the the next like tournament prodigy or whatever. What I can be is just me as a player, and I can be me. I think comparing comparing with others and playing out of, say, spite or jealousy or like negative emotions like that can only, I feel, they can get you pretty far. um but I don't think they do good for helping you enjoy the game, which is what I think is the most important aspect of improving. Even when I was improving, I was really hard on myself because I was like, this isn't as fast as the improvement of XYZ, or like I am not setting like scores that like I probably am expected to be setting. Um, Even though like at like a objective standpoint, I was improving, I was still not happy with myself. I think that mindset though is not good for the game. Over time, I've just learned to accept that um, everyone's different. Everyone improves at their own rate. Everyone plays skill sets that are special to them. Everyone plays on a different setup. Everyone has their own circumstances in life. Uh, just you can't you can be like players, but you can never be an exact copy of one. And that's something you should realize, I think, if you want to improve, because you shouldn't play with the purposes of matching or becoming someone. You should play for the purposes of evolving into, like, the best version of yourself. Uh, that's probably the mindset shift that probably helped me the most. And as terms of like, you say say Marshmary. Marshmary is a great example of that. Like, I think I got into the whole of like, hey, play every skill set to be like an all rounder, or like, a lot of people tell me, hey, you should practice finger controller or like reading, because that's or alt, because that will help you. The amount of times I've heard over the years, like, Alden if he could alt, or Alden if he could read, etc., etc. And I'd like to say that doesn't affect me, but I feel like young me who didn't really know like much about the game, it did affect me. It's like, hey, why can't I wish I learned the skill set, or I wish I was good at it. Uh, and when by the time 2020 hit, or like 2022, when I was kind of in my solo grind, the mindset shifted of like, why can't I do this? And rather that, trying to remedy like my weaknesses, I focused on like, how can I overcome it? Um, and I guess in my case, it's I just want to play my methods again. Like, stop, listening to, everyone's like general advice. I feel like general advice is good, but I also feel like everyone has their own specific way of playing the game. And for me, I went back to my old ways of just spam retrying maps and having fun about slowly progressing and improving through that. I think I found like new love for the game by kind of revisiting that old sort of grinding mindset of just, the little victories of passing every map with better act or better miscount, that sort of stuff. Uh, and that mindset evolved into, hey, like, I might not be like the best at like the skill set of alt. I might not be the best all rounder, but um, I'm getting faster. Uh, or my aim's getting better. Like, my swords, or like my skill sets that I specifically was getting good at, or were already good at, were getting better. And for me, that was good enough. Like, I found like a lot of, happiness or satisfaction with the game through that instead of like the whole, being like the most all-rounded tournament player, or being good at solo, or setting like insane plays, that sort of stuff. I think having high expectations is a good thing, and wanting to always get better is natural, but you should also just bring yourself back down to like reality a little bit and know that at some point, like they were never, no one's ever like spawned as the best player. Even like people like Emmerich Vaxe, like at some points they were like 1K or 2K2, but I think they never, those people in specific, never played with the played with the expectations of becoming like XYZ, or like I think they played to be the best person they could be, and look where that brought them. At least that's how I see the game. I don't know.
I mean,
Kind
I think that sort of overall theme that you're mentioning about like trying to not force yourself to be something else. And I mean, this can even be seen if you take someone like Emmerich and have him
Mhm.
start over and try living up to the Emmerich that we know today. I don't think he would be able to do it again. In
Yeah.
at least not in the same way, because the thing is, like, when you're confining yourself to try living up to a certain standard, then instead of just allowing yourself to like sort of flow through like the experiences that you're having, you're always trying to compare the experience that you're having with the sort of ideal that you set in your head, which I think is what you're mentioning as well. Is like,
Mhm.
if you're striving to be like the next MRAC or the next X player or the next X, like, sort of, I guess, that sort of thing, it's sort of removes a lot of the fluidity and sometimes the fun in the game. Although I know some people can find enjoyment out of that, but
Mhm.
I think what it really does is it gets you so fixated on that compared to anything else.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think a lot of players, me included, fall into the comparing mindset of just like, just being hard on yourself. I think Osu specific. I've never seen a game besides Osu where like someone is just so toxic to themselves. You know what I mean by like everyone's like setting plays, like they set a good play and then they say like, "Oh, bad play. I wish I could do better," etc., etc. But uh, yeah, I think the biggest thing is being happy with the little victories. It's the baby steps. I don't know. Just I feel like a lot of people should be satisfied in the slow progression rather than like always wanting to like make that big jump, because eventually things will click. I think walls. OC is a game that's very um I don't know how to explain it, but the when you can finally break that wall, the floodgates are open. I think in specific, us I've always never been like particularly the fastest, but when I was improving really well, I grinded really hard to be able to do like 220 to 230 stamina. And once I could do that, the floodgates were open and a bunch of maps became doable for me. Uh and Uh, but before that, prior before that, I was, having kind of like a miserable time just being in like the gutter. But one day it just clicks. So you'll never, even when you think progress isn't happening, it does happen. Uh, so I don't think you should be completely hard on yourself when you say you think you've made no practice or made no progress. Because it's there. It does like, you just probably can't see it yet. But the time you put in, at least if done diligently, will show. It will show. Just got to give it some time, because one day it might just click, and then once it does click, then you really see that big jump in improvement.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? Okay, so I've been playing Terraria a lot recently, so I'll
Mhm,
use this analogy, but this can basically be applied to sort of the concept in general. But it's like, let's say you're fighting, or like you're preparing your gear to fight a new boss, or like the
mhm,
next boss in a game, and you have like certain weapons that just aren't quite good enough, and so you have to grind materials
Mhm.
and like get all these different resources to and just generally like refine your movement and like learn a bit about like how like the boss moves and things like that and like the type of things it can do to you. And you can grind over and over, like trying to fight the boss over and over again, and like still just get wiped, even in like the same exact spot. And then you upgrade your gear a little bit, which takes a lot of grinding. Like during that time, it feels like you're making no actual progress on the boss itself because you're spending all this time just like I don't know, like farming resources, so to speak. And then you eventually, like basically, long story short, like once you're finally able to like like barely squeak past, like let's say like uh you reach the point where like you can get to the very end of the boss, but then like at 1 HP you just die. And it's like that sort of feeling like you haven't made any progress since the beginning. But like once you finally clear that boss and like everything kind of comes together, then not only does it feel like a giant sudden like spark of like improvement, so to speak, but also like once you've reached that point, then it's like the floodgates have kind of opened, like you said, and you
Yeah,
can
a lot more paths are open to you, but
yeah. And it's like once you can do it once, you can probably like, especially with the loot, I guess that you usually get from that boss, like you're usually like much stronger than you were before, and you can just like
yeah,
start breezing through. It's like you've just stepped up the ladder, basically.
mhm, mhm.
I feel like that concept
That's
actually,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a good analogy for it, I'd say. And even, you know, given that, when you take your break, like, um, it's like, say you accidentally, like, died in the game or something.
No.
You lost all your materials because 'cause you're playing on hardcore or something. You can get them back. It's not like they're gone forever, you know?
Yeah.
You just have to grind a little bit more, and now that you're more experienced in the skill set that you've, conquered, like, the boss or whatever, uh, you're a lot more experienced. Going back and getting to that point is going to be a lot easier and a lot faster. But, say for a lot of people, they don't wanna make that grind back, or, like, the grind back to that point is a little bit grueling. But, you know, support from others, like, friends, and that sort of stuff, definitely make that process a little bit more enjoyable. I so, yeah, that's also, like, to bring that analogy a little further, that's probably my insight towards that.
Yeah, for sure. I think another similar, like expanding on what you said, when you die, let's say in like Terraria or I don't know, even Minecraft or things like that, like
Yeah.
you get put back to your spawn point. Let's say you're like
Mhm.
deep in a cave and you die. You're like, oh, all
Yeah.
that progress. But the thing is, like the first time you go through that cave, you have to like put down torches and like sort of like mine through paths. But then in like when you die and you have to like get back to that same spot, the path is kind of cleared up for you. You just kind of have to go through it again.
Yeah, and, diverge to another game, like, say you're playing, like, League or whatever, and you hit, like, like, Diamond for the first time or whatever, and then you just stop playing the game, and now you're, like, back into, like, you've decayed, and now you're, like, Bronze or whatever. I don't know. Like, it might be, like, a little bit of a hassle, but, like, you can get back to that point you were, like, pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's not like, you'll never reach that point again. It's just you'll get back eventually, just with enough time. Um, I think now that I'm older, time's a lot more scarce, I'd say, but I don't speaking of time, I don't think, I think it's good to, love the game and play it a lot, but especially when you're older like me, like, you don't need to play the game, like, religiously. I feel. You can put, like, an hour or 2 of it's, like, not the I think this has been mentioned a lot, but it's not, like, the amount of time, it's, like, the quality of, like, how you play the game. It's what matters the most, at least. Say, like, you spend, like, 3 hours of spam retrying, 3 seconds into a map rather than playing through the map, like, 30 times for, like, an hour or whatever. Like, obviously, that 1 hour is a lot more, beneficial to you than, like, 3 hours of playing the game. So, it's also just not you don't people think it's a long time, to, like, get back to a point of de-resting, but I think the main contributing factor of, like, getting back to the point you were originally was the quality of like your resting session. So that's why when when you de-rest, you want to play through maps all the way through. You want to play maps that maybe not exactly you were playing at your peak, but like you mentioned before, that was a little bit, below the star level, or maybe to a level that is more comfortable for you at the stage. And then you can slowly bring that level up and up as time goes on. But what's important is that you play through the maps all the way through, and that you're having fun. Like you're playing maps that you like playing. You're, getting back into a nice, healthy mindset. What helps also sometimes is playing at a consistent time and having a consistent schedule. Because playing at different times during the day or having your like a wonky sleep schedule or that sort of stuff kind of makes your de-resting session a little bit harder to track. But if you play consistently at the same time every day, like, and you get into the swing of things, you start making your improvement. And by de-resting, you also make your de-resting like a little bit of a habit. And you'll kind of get into sort of like a playing mode. I've noticed that if I play in a consistent time, and a consistent schedule, that will definitely help in terms of de-resting.
Yeah, I think that a lot of things you mentioned, especially about like the quality of your session, especially in regards to like the amount of time that you spend, is super important. And especially I think with de-resting, I think there's a lot of frustration that can come out of that. Like I guess I feel like the spammer trying is sometimes fueled by that frustration that like you just
Yeah,
can't hit the pattern like you used to be able to.
a bit of like rage running it down. I feel a lot. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm just like bashing my head against the wall sometimes, just like angry that like I can't hit it. But I think that's just, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a bit of a waste of time nowadays. It's like you should just got to push through it and accept where you are now, and play the same map tomorrow or give it some time.
Yeah.
No need to get mad at a game that's involved in clicking circles, I feel. No need.
There's a couple other analogies that I want to mention, and they actually both relate to the same game, which is Teamfight Tactics. This is a strategy game where basically you have like units that
Ooh,
you
my
basically like
favorite.
build a team from like units that
Uh-huh.
appear in a shop randomly,
Mhm.
and some of them like synergize with each other, but some of them have like the same traits. And if you get like multiple that are the same trait, then they like synergize well with each other. And so regarding de-rusting, this is mostly about like your skill floor, so to speak.
Mhm.
And as opposed to like, so when you're de-rusting, there's some people that get on and they're basically the same as they were before. Maybe they need like
Yeah.
1 or 2 days. And then there's some people that it almost feels like they can never get back, or they have to like really brute force to get back to that point.
Mhm.
And I feel like the difference is actually somewhat illustrated with a strategy game like Teamfight Tactics, or you can apply this to any strategy game. But it's like there's a difference between like knowing like intuitively, like in a game like Teamfight Tactics, like you want tankier units in the front, and you want like more damage dealing but squishier units in the back, and you sort of because it's like front to back sort of like battles, like automated battles, and you generally want like the units that synergize well with each other and things like that. And you can consider things like, are they dealing physical damage or magic damage, and that sort of like considering that along with like the items, like some items buff the attack damage, and so you don't want to give them to magic damage, all obviously magic damage users, obviously, and vice versa. And so there's a difference between sort of like understanding those concepts and being able to apply them even as the game updates and the units that are in the game sort of get cycled out, versus if you just like brute force memorize certain compositions of teams and like memorize what units to buy if you want to play a certain composition, like following a recipe. This analogy actually applies to things like cooking as well, where you can sort of imagine like different flavors work well together. And there's a difference between sort of understanding like intuitively the flavor synergies and how they work together, or like the character synergies, as opposed to just memorizing the almost like in short-term memory, so to speak. Like after a week or two off the game, not only have you maybe forgotten what some of those synergies are or like those compositions are, but they might not be relevant anymore. Either the game has changed a little bit in terms of the meta, or maybe the characters have been cycled out. But relating this to Osu, I think there's a difference. It's sort of in your skill floor, and like, did you brute force single tap speed and raw stamina, and like get yourself up to like barely managing to be able to play these maps just through sheer willpower, or is it sort of like grounded with more like focusing on your tech, like refining your technique, and sort of as you mentioned this thing about like reading jumps where you kind of split them into like a smaller like 1-2 sections at a time, and like do you have that foundation and that skill floor that you can fall back on and build up from, or like is it basically all like short term, like I guess short term memory, so to speak, and your skill floor is actually very low, and you've just spent so much brute force getting it up to where it is now? Because I feel like those are the situations where when you take a break, so I feel like when you take a break, you regress back to your skill floor. And so basically the stronger, and I think your skill floor is basically defined by your fundamentals and your technique and like how solid those are. And so when you come back to the game, it's like that skill floor that you've set for yourself will determine like where you're starting back off and how easily you'll be able to get back up. I think that's my
Yeah,
little analogy.
that's a. I'd say for me, personally, uh, it's a bit of both. I'd say it's a bit of both. Definitely different skill sets are at different points. Uh, Specifically for aim, maybe it's because you're right. Like I learned the foundations of aim, like of how I read jumps and that sort of stuff. That stuff never kind of goes away from me. Like give it like a day or two, and I could probably play like you know like 8 star 8 star jump maps that are like 190 BPM, that sort of stuff. Like the aim will not go away, I feel. Uh, but what you mentioned of like sheer willpower and grit is definitely the tapping. Um, I think my tapping gets drastically slower when I come back from a break. And it's only my tapping only usually gets better through sheer like willpower and grinding and kind of grit. But I think it's kind of hard. I think you're going through something similar where it's you're relearning your technique for
Oh
the
yeah,
basis of having like good streaming, you know?
yeah, I am.
Uh but I guess looking for me, uh what made me get a lot faster definitely was kind of being inspired by like other top players at the time. I think what definitely recently I've started noticing is I just kind of, I've gone to a lot more IRL like OC meetups and stuff, right? Over the years, I've gotten closer with the BC boys, like you know, Ryan, Trevor Asher, those people who are like really good at speed, and just watching them like tap IRL, or
Oh god.
say watching like people like Emerson, or Muffin Slayer 14, who's a really great DT player. Talking to him and seeing how he taps IRL, watching Too Slow. Like everyone has their own kind of technique that they do. Uh, but when I think what helped me was finding the right one for me. In my specific case, when Emmy was looking at my tapping technique, he's like, "Why don't you like say tucking your fingers more, or like curl your thumb? It's a little more efficient that way." And I told my, I didn't really think about it. I kind of just tapped the way I always do. So I started grinding with that sort of foundation, that new foundation that I was given. And I didn't really see results until like months, maybe a couple of months later, where I started getting those speed plays that I've always wanted to set and that sort of stuff. And then coming back from de-resting, I've noticed that there is still like a lot of it was still like grit and speed. I think speed in specific is a skill set that you need a lot of de-resting time. Like foundation is good, but to get that finger dexterity takes a lot of repetition uh, and a warm up to do, just to get your muscles a little bit more loose and get used to it. I'm not a speed player by any means, so I can't really speak too solidly on this. But at least for me and my improvement, um, the foundation, like a lot of that specific skill set, takes a lot of grinding to get good at. Again, I'd say so. Though discovering, how other people play it and kind of doing my own research on how to get better at that specific like tapping skill set, that sort of stuff, has been kind of rewarding for me. And it's something I wish I did a lot back then. Is kind of self-reflecting and like looking at what other people do and using that to my own benefit. Because unconsciously, that's what I did when I wanted to get better at aim. When I asked Bolglet, "How do I get better at the game?" and he told me like the fundamentals and skill sets that I use to play aim now. So I don't know. That's how I look at it. Also, I guess since I am more aim oriented, I think when I play, there is a big gap. I feel like with aim in specific because uh, even then, I think I grind a lot for my plays, and when I see people who can do it like intuitively, I get demotivated a little bit because I see how much time they put into it in their skill set versus me. But I feel like a lot of the great, like good people at AIM play it a lot and really like it. I think FG Sky is a great example. He plays though he picked it up really fast. He was always a good AIM player, and he really likes playing it. I guess he's kind of demotivated nowadays, but he really enjoyed just playing AIM. I look at Jordan the Bear, and what I realized was he plays the game a lot, like a lot, and he always is grinding AIM. And so, what I realized is, though it doesn't really, sometimes it looks like people are just naturally gifted. Behind the scenes, they've put a lot of work and a lot of grinding to get where they are now, and that kind of just gives me motivation. It's like, hey, it's like they had to put a lot of work into like getting where they are. Like that means like I should be doing that too if I want to be like the very best of the best.
Yeah, I feel like that sort of, especially the advice that you get from other people, can sort of like open yourself up to things that others might
Mm.
seem as like kind of obvious because that's what came naturally to them. But even if like after you hear it, you're like, oh, that's obvious, but sort of like actually sort of being able to put it into practice, or not only that, but like having someone recommend it to you specifically after looking at what you're doing, I think makes it so much real, so much more real than if you just kind of come across it randomly.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Coming across it randomly is good too. I think it's kind of like that fine line because um again, not everything will work for everyone. I
Right.
The people I listed as like people I've kind of been looking at for tapping, they all tapped in their own different ways, and I've tried all of them. Uh, so you kind of have to pick and choose what's perfect or good enough for you because everyone's in their own specific situation. I remember like specifically, I went to Toronto and I saw Too Slow, a pretty good Canadian DT player at the time, tap in real person, and he smashed this keyboard. I've never seen anything like it. Like I thought those keyboard like that keyboard was going to break. Like he was like like he was like one of the fastest people like I talked to. And I thought for the longest time that tapping was a lot about being efficient and like being like, tapping with as, efficiently as possible and maintaining stamina. But his the way he tapped was just like full out like power. Bottom out, like it looked like his hand was like having like an aneurysm. And I tried it for myself and I realized like, it's not really for me. I do a lot better when I feel like my hands when I'm a lot more efficient with my tapping. So that's just like an example of like, just because it works for someone, it doesn't mean it will work for you. I think like KHZ when he made his speed tutorial about how he grinds speed, like that can work, but it's not for everyone. Uh I think self-reflection and like thinking if it's good for you, being the judge of whether that skill is or that way of like playing the game is beneficial for you is a big part of improving, I'd say. Just knowing yourself, learning about yourself as a player is uh a good way to like uh know where to like map out your improvement, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially like needing to figure out what works for you and like I guess not being peer pressured into being like, oh, no one else
Mhm.
taps this way or no one else aims this way. So yeah, I think that, and as you mentioned, it's like it's more about, I guess, like you come across it faster, if that makes sense. If you
Mhm.
hear it from someone as opposed to like eventually you will find it
Yeah,
yourself.
eventually you will find it yourself, I feel.
So yeah, I mean it's really, and everyone has their own like there's some people that prefer like they, the part of the fun of the game for them is like finding everything themselves, which is perfectly
Yeah.
okay. So
I think yeah, I think that's like kind of uh that is like one of the best ways to play, I'd actually argue.
yeah.
Because that's a whole sort of I feel when, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but when people tell you to play a certain way and stuff, it kind of, takes away the kind of creative and like the free flowing nature of the game and how open it is into more of a like kind of a training facility of like having it streamlined into a path of improvement. I don't think it's kind of that way. It's like going to school, just like learning about stuff, applying it, and then, slowly going up the ranks until like you graduate, get your diploma, and whoop de doo. Now you can play like this map and stuff, or like you have like this certain skill set now after, but it's not like that. It's more like say drawing or like painting an art piece like um, everyone has their own techniques, everyone has their own style, and
Right.
through refining that style and finding what works for you, maybe having influence through other people you like you'll pave your own path and your own like you'll yeah, your own path of a player, and I think that's probably the most beautiful way to play the game, in my opinion. I don't know, just some ramblings, but that's how I view it. Probably view it more as your skill set is like a piece of art rather than a piece of like a test, a piece of paper. It's a good way to look at it.
What do you mean by a piece of paper?
Like as in like a piece of paper as in like you get like this sheet of check bar like like tick boxes of like, hey, have you done XYZ, like a little like a planning sheet of like or like a schedule, or like
Uh,
or a worksheet that you have to do, and then once you finish that worksheet, you get like, I don't know, like a sticker, a gold star or something. But how valuable is like that little like gold star or like finishing that paper when you can make like your own thing from scratch rather? Because like that little cheat sheet that you get from someone that will tell you how to like be good at the game can only take you as far as that person like imagines. I guess that's it's weird. It's like if someone asks me to get how to get better at the game, I will tell them stuff that helps me get better, but I am not like I don't think I'm the best at what I do. And I feel like my advice will only get someone as far as like not even to the point where I am. So what good is my real advice when you probably want to be better than me,
right. Yeah.
because you have to find those answers yourself to like push past the people below you or push past the people you want to overcome. You can't get those answers from them because if you get your answers from them or looking through other people, you'll only go probably as far as to match them, not really like surpass them, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's definitely a good point. People talk about this actually, and when people talk about like YouTube videos, like when you're making a YouTube video, taking
Mhm.
inspiration from like, let's say Mr. Beast does something, or maybe that's not a good example. Let's say like BTMC makes a video and you sort of are inspired to do the same
Mhm.
style of video or like same concept. You're usually limited to the cap that he got on his video, like the viewer count, because
Mhm.
you're sort of making a diluted version of his video. So the limit usually of like that concept, you're limited to the scope of like how his video performed, if that
Mhm.
makes
Yeah.
sense. That's
Yeah.
something that people mention relatively often, not super often, but that is something that people say around the YouTube space.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like just bring it back to Osu, like to be more clear, it's like no matter how I feel, no matter how much Habib that you tell me how to play the game and how to improve, I will always like objectively I'll always be like a diluted version of your skill set no matter how hard I train. And the only way to like get better or like overcome like say that I feel is just to find the answers for myself and find what works for me. And say like you're making YouTube videos and you know you take inspiration in BTMC, but say you take inspiration from like other YouTubers or YouTubers that aren't even related to like the OC space or something, and you take all those answers that you've and experience you've accumulated, and you make your own video through that, and maybe from that you make your own sort of brand, your own sort of and you hit a different space, a
Yeah.
space that like you could call your own, and through that maybe you'll gain even more viewership. I'm not gonna get like I'm not a YouTuber, I don't know, but that's how I look at it, at least. Like the niche that you hit has to be your own, I feel, not someone else's.
Yeah, actually, okay, I'm gonna push back a little bit on what you mentioned that like no matter how much you train,
Mhm,
like following someone else's methods, because I think you can take like let's say you practice the same way that uh
mhm, mhm,
you hear someone else like give that advice, but they train like 3 hours a week and you train 30 hours a week, then chances are at some point, especially if you're already pretty close in skill level to them, that like you'll be able to overtake them just from like sheer volume of how much you're
mhm.
practicing. So I do think that like the methods, I do agree, like sometimes methods are limited. Oh, okay, perfect example of this. I
Yeah,
remember one of my friends learned teamfight tactics
yeah,
from a different friend. And so, okay, so they told me this story because whenever I'd watch them play, whenever they had, I guess this is more of a niche example, but if the example doesn't make sense, then I think the principle will still make sense. So you're supposed to keep your gold above 50, the gold that you have in teamfight tactics, because then you get the most like passive income from like having some gold left over, and anything above 50 is fine, basically. And so this person, whenever I'd watch them play, they would, whenever they had 53 or 52 gold, they would press the reroll button, which costs 2 gold, to bring them back to either 50 or 51. And the idea was that it's the most efficient because you're using up all the gold that you can within that round. But it's like if you re-roll your shop and then there's someone you want and you have to buy them, then the gold cost would get you under 50, which is not ideal because you want to be at that 50 threshold or above. And I asked them about this. Like I was like, why do you like roll when you're at 53 or 52 gold? And they said that the person they learned the game from, who was platinum rank at the time, which is like decent, you're relatively experienced, but you're not like super high skill level.
mhm,
That friend that was platinum rank gave that advice to them because they're like, oh yeah, you want to be like 50 or 51. So it's like the most efficient because you're using up all your gold per round. And so they learned the game playing that way with that habit. And I think that perfectly kind of illustrates what you're talking about, which is that like if you're getting advice from someone who isn't like all the way at the top, then sometimes the advice is like the reason why they don't give you different advice is because like or like the reason why they're not higher rank is because they don't have the better advice themselves. And so
mhm.
I think that's I'm pretty sure that that's sort of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Also, just like the person like you're talking about the person who like grinds like 30 hours. I feel like that's more of a grit grind thing, though, in my opinion. Like I feel like having what's good specifically about people giving training advice is it kind of motivate. It's the motivation that people gain from it. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I
the
agree.
kind of the what's the most important is the drive. Is like, hey, like it's trying something new that you haven't tried before, or it's it's the kind of placebo effect of like, hey, this is gonna like stimulate my improvement and help me go farther. I feel like that's the most important part of getting advice from people. It's the motivation that you gain through that, and showing like by asking around and asking people for advice, it shows that you're involved and that you want to learn, you want to get better at the game, and I think that helps bring a healthy mindset, I feel. So
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that you know I could argue like that person who plays the same training regimen like for 30 hours and surpasses them, um, that's more to do with their motivation, uh, rather than the actual like training regimen that they have or the advice that they were given.
Yeah, and also chances are that that person that's grinding way more than the person who they got the advice from, chances are
Mhm.
they're using a culmination of advice that they've heard from many different
Oh
people.
yeah, from many other people, yeah.
Yeah, and
Which is
also
why
like just from
oh
playing
yeah,
that
go on.
much, you find your own advice and things that work for you as well.
Mhm. Which is why like tying it back to like tournaments, I think it's like getting to know a lot of tournament players is also a good thing because I'd never talk to like the Europeans or I'd never talk to like the Koreans or stuff, that sort of stuff, if it wasn't for tournaments. And I wouldn't learn their own little like quirks or like the own little things that they do. Uh like I wouldn't know these like ways to play the game, like mouse only or tap X or that sort of stuff existed if it wasn't for like just seeing people who play in those weird ways through tournament. Also people who practice seeing people's what maths people like playing at the start, like arts related, like kind of eye inspiring. I think like Trev, when we started playing a lot, he would put on like I don't know, like 230 right away, 250 like DT stamina or something crazy like that. And he's like, "Well, you guys don't warm up on this like speed maps and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, well, the maps. I think something I learned is like the maps that you warm up with is really indicative of like your skill set. I feel.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, so what I think helps me in specific, I don't know. Not necessarily when I'm like de-resting, but when I want to get better at a skill set, I'll start warming up on that skill set. Maybe not to like a skill cap degree, but like warming up on DT, for example, instead of like aim, which is what I usually do. Um, is it's different, but I feel like it's helping me a lot. In my skills, like learning a new skill set. So that's an advice I'd give to people is just try to warm up with the skill set that you're uncomfortable with to help you get comfortable with it in the long run.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's actually yeah something that I recommend to people as well.
hmm Plus, it's also like a good way to like, when you're warming up, you don't expect to play at your best, so you shouldn't be that demoralized when you're not playing that well. It's a good way to like feel get an entry point to like learning a certain skill set. I feel.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree because you sort of like when you're warming up, you're not super like your hands aren't super into the game yet, and so it's like usually the maps that are your weakness are usually ones that like you're playing lower star rating than you usually do anyway, and
hmm
so it's like when you're playing warm up, when you're doing your warm up, you can pretty much play whatever you want as long as it's something that can kind of get your hands used to, just kind of I don't know, adapted to playing the game basically for that day, and so playing like it works out really nicely to just use that time as an opportunity to play the stuff that you're not that good at.
I wonder, like, at least for when you were improving, back in like what 2016 and stuff. How did you approach the how did you approach that hurdle? Because like I said, I remember me saying that like I when I realized that I was really good at like no mod aim and stuff. I also like realized because at the time when I first played my tournament with Num and Aoyuki, that we didn't have a hard rock player, and I was never really into hard rock or DT. I was probably more exclusive on no modding that sort of stuff. So I picked up a new skill set, hard rock skill set, just specifically for that tournament, and I enjoyed it. So I just went through, and that's how I became a hard rock player. Um,
Oh wow, I actually
I
didn't know
wonder,
that.
yeah, that's the only reason I picked it up. But I was wondering if it was like for you, if that's how you kind of decided to be an all rounder. It's like just playing tournaments where you like, I want to be able to play everything, or was it like, wow, you were like, wow, I can play everything, just but I can get better at it, so I should, practice to be an all rounder. Like, was it when you tried to improve, was it more so you trying to fill in the gaps of your skill set, or was it more increasing the skill cap? of your current skill set. That's something I'm interested in uh,
I
knowing.
I definitely focused a lot more on filling in gaps even before I started playing tournaments. This was in like
Mhm.
2015 or so when I wanted to learn hidden. I was really no mod only. The only mod I really played was DT on maps where it basically turned the map into like no mod. Like it was still really slow and
Mhm.
really low AR, like hard diffs and things like that. But
Yeah.
around mid 2015, I think I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn hidden because this mod, like I would turn it on and I just can't see anything. Like what?
Oh,
This mod is not fair. I was
were
like,
you inspired by like Sapphire Ghost at the time? I'm just curious because I feel like that was like one of your like big inspirations to play the game. At least
yeah,
that's why I like thought of when I first started playing. Because it's interesting because you really like to play. One you looked up to Sapphire Ghost, I looked up to Bezier, and now we're probably like modern day versions, I'd say,
right.
of the people that we looked up to. Uh,
So Sapphire Ghost for me. So when I was relatively new to the game,
mhm.
like you start recognizing people's names on the global leaderboards. For me, players like Beatrice, the Korean player,
Oh yes.
it's like hidden double time SS on every hard diff and things like that. And every now and then I started recognizing Sapphire Ghost as well on the leaderboards. And particularly, I think it was because of his avatar at the time was just something that I thought was cool. And so I just started recognizing their name a lot. And then I went to their profile and it just seemed like a wholesome person based on their user page and things like that. And so it was one of my early like players that I started recognizing and I guess sort of like, I guess looking up to or sort of like following every now and then I would like check up on their user page and like see how it's going there. But yeah, I remember, I don't think that was particularly my inspiration for Hidden. I think it was just that maybe it was because some of my friends or like people that I knew were like these like starting to get decent at Hidden, but I was just like, man, I suck at this mod. I just wanted to learn it, I think, because it was something I was bad at. And so I was like, okay, I remember there was one player that I sort of knew of at the time that was like basically hidden only and had really good ac, which was super inspiring to me. And so I sent them a message through the Osu for like private message, like the Osu email, basically, like
Mhm.
the message
Oh, yeah.
system that was on the old website. But I sent them a message asking for like tips with hidden, and they gave me like some pointers and some starting maps that personally helped them, and they thought would be helpful for me. And I just grinded those maps. It was so hard. It was so hard. But yeah, eventually I sort of like overcame, and like I just kind of grinded hidden a lot. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like I must have always had this sort of like image that like as you improve, you sort of learn all the different skills as you
Oh yeah.
progress.
That's Yeah, that's probably what I expected. I definitely see that, like,
Yeah.
seeing your growth over the years, like, seeing that mindset. That's good. I don't think that's a wrong way to play. I think everyone has their own different mindsets. I feel, like, people like, I'd say, I wanna say people like, Bashiman? I'd say, like, I think they started off playing Gimmick, right?
Um, I
Or is
don't
it
completely remember. I think so.
Yeah, I feel like everyone kinda has their own, like, niche that they kinda wanna, like, hit on. Maybe Wowie's a good example. Like,
Oh
Wowie's,
yeah.
I feel like definitely always liked, the more obscure maps and that sort of stuff, and I feel like now he's a great player in his own right through that, like, kind of, like, image of a player he wanted to be, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I agree with that. One thing
um,
I want to ask you about
yeah.
is no fail.
Oh,
That is
yeah.
something you have on almost every top play. Can you sort of give the context on how your play style with hidden started in the first place and what makes you still want to use it today?
Oh, no f yeah. Um, let's see, way back in, like, 2015, I was at the edge, I'd say, of, like, 4 digit, right?
So
And
like
I want
you were 5 digit still?
or no,
Oh, you were
I
like
was at the edge
1.1K?
of yeah, I was, like, 1.1K, like, and I was playing tournaments with all of you guys, right?
Oh, right, right.
And I knew at that moment that, like, if I really wanted to, I could go to 3 digit whenever I wanted to. I actually did it at, like, several points, but at the, in the current game, like, back then, you could use no fail to overwrite your scores. You can still do this now. It's just like a different method and it's a lot harder. But back then it was really easy because the way that PP was calculated was it took your highest score rather than like it didn't take like mods into like account. So theoretically, if you set a like FC with no fail, and then you could override it with like a no mod play that got half the combo and like maybe like worse act and like a billion misses afterwards. But the score, because no fail gives 0.5 in score, would be higher. And so you'd overwrite your no fail score with no mod and it would be less PP. And I'd say I kind of abused that to, just hop up and down the rankings, maybe, do a little D ranking. uh Originally I was inspired because this is something that Beezer heavily abused back then when he was playing, and
Oh yeah.
I wanted to be like Beezer back then, like so I adopted that same style and uh same kind of like truly carefree nature that he did, right? And then once I eventually stopped and I became decided to rank up, that's when the no fail change happened. That's when the no fail change happened. Because I actually hopped off no fail afterwards when I like stopped playing tournaments. I hopped off no fail initially, and I stopped playing the like tournaments and stuff with, or like stopped keeping my rank. Like my rank was like 1K now, not because I was D ranking, but because I wasn't playing the game that much anymore. But when I came back during the time where the no fail change happened.
Oh,
That's when
what's the no fill change?
where uh where FCs with no fail gave you the same amount of PP as a no mod FC. So basically, and then they removed like the deranking method of overriding your scores with no mod with no fail.
Right.
So naturally, I was always going to shoot up because um at the time I had a goal at the time when I was playing to set my first 500 with no fail. And no fail at the time gave around a 70% PP decrease.
No, no, I
Uh,
guess 30% decrease,
oh,
70% of
30%.
max, right?
Yeah, 70% of max. So yeah, 30% decrease. So you only got 70% of the PP that you're supposed to get. And once I got it with my FC on Uta, I felt really like, satisfied with that. And that was the same time when I was going to rank up anyways. So I just realized that like, hey, I should just, start ranking up. Uh, and so I grinded to skill cap. I grinded a lot of my skill cap and I started playing a lot more solo rather than just being team focused and playing with friends. Uh, and what I realized is I liked playing a lot of hard maps, but I also back then I realized that spam retrying was a little inefficient. So then, as someone who played no fail, I was like, no fail is not actually that bad now. Like, because I had the purpose of like setting good scores now, and I was so focused on myself that like I didn't really care about like, other people seeing my scores anymore. So I wanted to improve. Uh I think it was a great way to help me like play hard maps without really caring. I think in specific like stream maps, like playing really spaced stream maps, you take one miss and you're dead. And like and you can't play it anymore, and then you have to retry from the start. And that, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to play through like the first like 3 minutes of Uta. That's like 2 stars, and then go to the miss on one hard section. Or like, I don't want to play like, I don't know, like Honesty Hard Rock and like miss like the opening stream, and then have to play that opening all over again just so that I can have a chance to play Hard Rock on the hard part. Um, Instead, I just put on no fail and I started playing stuff with no fail exclusively. And then it just became a habit, I think. Just every session that I'd go, I just immediately put on no fail. And I start playing high skill cap maps that normally like I'd fail on often. I think a lot of people like come up to me and they're like, hey, like, why are you putting on no fail now? you SC the maps anyways. What's the point? But it's like they don't see like the the billions or like a lot of like retry spam that I do. Like thanks to like no fail, I can see a lot of my local scores on maps now. I think that gets lost in like the fail scores that you have, that you don't see. It's a good way to see like your improvement steadily increase because you can go from like, failing the map a billion times on no fail into like, seeing that B turn into an A rank, that A rank into like an S rank and whatever goal you're trying to achieve. But having no fail on gives you the it's just a lot more convenient because you can see your improvement a lot more clear and you can also have a chance of playing the map in its entirety a lot more. It's a lot more efficient, I feel, rather than just having the no fill turned off. Originally, yes, it was for deranking, but then it became like a conscious choice of having it for the sake of improving. It's a lot of people who I think are around now know that I like using it specifically for improving. But I feel like there's like always that little meme in me that people think like it's just like because I'm a D ranker nowadays, but that's not really it's not really true. It was true, but now it's not. It's also I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. There's a little thing, something a little funny of like seeing like my like Nomad FC or like not Nomad FC but like Nomad Choke, and then you put on the Hard Rock No Fail leaderboards, and then it's just Hard Rock No Fail FC, or seeing like No Fail on the top global leaderboards with an S rank in the middle of the pack where there's a bunch of people with B or A ranks. I think that's kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's like a little challenge of like trying to get on the leaderboards with no fail. It's like a little challenge that I like doing sometimes. But having like your wall, what was really a big factor of that switch? Because for that period where I stopped playing with no fail, all my top plays were with no mod, basically for that little period, and all like my top like 100. There was a couple no fails, but most of it was like with no mod. Having that, having that top having that like those top plays slowly get flooded with no fill scores was oddly satisfying. Like you could literally see like the improvement of like maybe like the odd 237 scores with no fail into like 20 into like 30 into 40 into like a big chunk, like maybe I think around like 60% of my scores, like 60ish, maybe 50 of my scores in my top 100 are now with like no fail.
Oh my
And
god.
that's um that's kind of satisfying to look at. Just like knowing that like you can see like the tangible like improvement uh maybe that you probably wouldn't have noticed because it's easy to see like it's hard to see like the times that you've set those scores like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, one couple months, but it's easy to see like the mods like the no fail mod flood come in, having that big NF on like your screen. And now there's no detriment to having it. It also forces you to like say, hey, like you won't get the maximum out of this map unless you FC. And it puts out like sort of pressure. It's like it punishes you a lot more for missing. And I kind of like that aspect of like, if I miss, like I shouldn't be satisfied with a miss. It should really like I should really go for this FC if I really want to get the that PP value attached to that, even though maybe I'm not the most PP oriented player. But having that stark like drop off of having that miss compared to an FC is really, I think it's really motivating because I'll never get the full satisfaction unless I FC. Other reasons for playing no fail, um, I mean, like you play tournaments with no fail anyways, so I feel like in terms of competitiveness, I don't think there's a real difference. Like
Yeah.
people will complain about like, hey, like why are you playing no field and solo? Like there's no point. But um I think there's a reason why I don't put no fail on love the maps. Love maps for me are like maps that like I play with the exclusiveness of passing. Setting like because most of those maps are like ridiculously hard like, comparatively to like standard. Most of them, not all, but so I usually use left as like of as the place where I would focus on passing the map instead, and that's where I take no fail off because for some people passing the map in standard in normal ranked match is good for them, but for me it's setting the scores is the most important part, and then failing the map kind of takes away from that initial goal I have of like I want to set the score to see where I am relative to like my normal like skill level, to see if that floor is slowly going up or to see if like I'm really getting better. Like you'll never be able to tell the difference of like say in stream maps, like you're never going to tell the difference of like 100 misses to like 80 misses to 70 misses to 50 misses
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
if you don't have no fail on. A good example of that is Road of Resistance. Uh, for me, I think when I first started playing, I would never pass the map like on the final stream. But I think with playing with no fail, like over time, I whittled that down from like 5 misses to 3 misses to 2 misses. Now, like I get like S ranks all the time, and I would never see that like slow gradual improvement if I didn't have no fail on. Same thing with Frozen. I think I play Frozen Hard Rock a lot, and uh a lot of people are like take off no fail, that's like you'll sit in the same score, but I think the satisfaction and the reason why I could play that map a lot is because I went from a C rank to a B rank like 80, I don't know, it's like I don't know, like 30 misses into like an A rank with like 10 into like S rank. Now I have an S rank with 0 misses and a slider break. Like I would never get to that see that gradual increase if I didn't have no fail on. And so that's like my main reason of having no fill nowadays is so I could, more accurately see my growth uh, on maps, whether like you might not be able to see them specifically. And I understand that some people like having that kind of pass mentality. Um, that score shouldn't matter if you fail. And I get that. That's why I take it off during like love maps or unranked maps. But I don't know. I feel like when it's in solo, what's most important is yourself and seeing yourself improve. And I think no fail is a great way to help accurately see that improvement. I just realized I went on like a 10-minute, like
No,
that was quite the rant,
you're
but
good. Yeah.
that's my whole no fail philosophy nowadays.
Yeah, I think that perspective on no fail is actually really, I think, a refreshing take on solo play in general. I mean, the way I've always seen it,
Mhm,
HP has a role as a game mechanic and things like past players, like you said, and there's definitely value in like that style of playing.
mhm,
But how I see it from an improvement perspective, and this is disclaimer, this is like a completely like personal viewpoint that I have, is that I feel like HP has like serves no purpose
yeah,
when it comes to actual improvement, and especially as you mentioned, being able to like play through the entire map without that pressure on yourself and save those local scores is something that's really valuable, especially for just being able to track your progress and watch yourself improve.
mhm. Also for like if you want like a tip on like nerves, like you'll never have having that feeling of never being able to fail a map. It's really refreshing. I don't know. When you hit a hard part in like a stream map, for example, it is so easy to fail on like an easy stream afterwards due to nerves. And having that, that kind of underlying feeling of like, oh my god, like I need to pass the map now. I need to like this is my best play yet. I can't like mess this up. Having
Right.
that kind of pressure taken away from you with no feel is like really refreshing. And like that's that is a like mechanic that it's exclusive to solo play. Um because in you'll never back then you used to have that like we were talking about the fail story in Kanyo Cup, but
Oh god.
nowadays no fail is enforced in tournaments, so you don't really get that anymore. So I don't know. I think it will like if you want like a random like if you want to be randomly more consistent, I think I do recommend putting on no fail. Some people also have like the I get people who like to be on leaderboards and see their scores, but you know, you can always FC it twice. That's all I'm gonna say. Like if you FC it once, you could FC it again, no, like without no fail if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
like at any point. So, yeah, that's how I think. A lot of scores that people think are like once in a lifetime probably aren't once in a lifetime. So you shouldn't beat yourself up over it if you set it with like no fill by accident or something, because you could definitely do it again. Like if you've done it once, you can do it again. If you can ride a bike, you can ride a bike for the rest of your life, sort of deal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that perspective. You know what would be so cool
What's up?
is if your local scores were visible, like if they sort of like all saved on the website. And so like if you click on someone's personal best, you can see like if someone has like 400 locals on a map and they grinded like crazy and they finally
Yeah.
got an FC, and you could go to the website, click on their score and like scroll through like all the A ranks, all the way down to
Oh, that
D
would be
ranks.
so cool. That'd be so motivating. That would
Yeah.
be so motivating. Like if you're like a 6 or 5 day and you just see like someone sit like an maybe not Emmerich. That'd be kind of demoralizing to be honest. I feel like that guy like two taps maps nowadays. But like maybe maybe like Jordan the Bear would be a good example, or like a lot of some of my top plays. If you see like the amount of time and the amount of retries I put it into it, like it would paint the whole story. Like
Yeah.
people, yeah,
You
people
know,
don't come out of nowhere, I
the,
feel.
the best example is probably FG Sky.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. People think that guy, like with his Twitter clips, like people think he just came out of nowhere, but no, he puts the grind, and he's definitely been on the grind. Oh, it's a great example. Same thing with I think Badu also. I don't know, but I feel like he practices a lot aim a lot more than people probably think. Uh,
Yeah. 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 For sure.
he definitely puts the time in to be an aim prodigy. So yeah, I think people shouldn't be discouraged when people seem to be like naturally gifted at a skill set, because they definitely put the time and effort into honing their skills.
Like,
And yeah, no fail is a great way to visualize that for yourself. So yeah, just put on no fail. I feel like also a lot of me, because Beezer also played no fail, and that like I also do it a lot to like pay homage to like who like I looked up to. I feel
right.
like there's a little bit of that too into it, but most of it's for the reasons of improvement. But that's like a little tidbit I'd like to like just mention.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, man. Beezer was like the original D ranker. He was like an
Yeah,
OG, like a Generation 1 D ranker.
yeah, definitely. Ming, Beezer, definitely Generation
Yeah,
Ones.
OMG
Like
4s as well.
OMG,
He was
yes,
like Gen
like
Zero.
yeah, Gen Zero. I'd say. I think we kind of came afterwards. We were like they're little.
Yeah, I think we were Gen 2.
Yeah.
But man, and like I'm just thinking about it. Like if you go to someone's historical page on their user
Mhm.
page, like if you were to click on any of those maps or like the number of times played, if you mouse over it, it says times played. But if you could click on it and it takes you to a page, like the website has like a score page, for like someone's like current score on a map. But it's
Mhm.
like you could click on it and it would just have like your local leaderboard on it. That
Yeah,
would be
that
so
would be.
cool.
I don't know. That feels like something that in laser could be implemented, but I don't know if the current system uh would support it. But that's definitely something that'd be like insanely cool to have. Uh, but at least for nowadays, like just know that a lot of the times, um, even if it's like someone looks like they like tried it twice, like for example, my 700, um, I set within like 2 plays, maybe like second day of trying it. I didn't even really play the end that much, and I forgot there was like I finished the hardest stream. But I wouldn't have gotten that play if I didn't beforehand spam or retry a bunch of old, like, I've retried like Kreutz Road of Resistance a billion times. I've retried what is it? Honesty a bunch of times. I've retried Blue Zenith a bunch of like all of those retries have culminated into that one stream score that I set. And you wouldn't like I think the average person wouldn't like see that, and they would just assume that like I was like, uh like naturally like gifted at like that skill set, or like, just didn't really have to try as hard to set that score. But the reality is like put a lot of time, and that was just like kind of like the fruits of like my labor sort of deal.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I feel like because a lot of people unfortunately lose their locals through like game crashes or
Oh
like
yeah,
random
yeah,
stuff. So I feel like being able to have it on the website, because like you can see like with Osu Plus, you can see like people's recents from the last 24 hours,
oh yeah, yeah,
and you can like toggle failed scores. I feel like those if those just saved somehow on the server, not really in your profile, but like in some like I guess like more hidden way. I feel like
yeah,
that is something, and like maybe I feel like it would save because like how else do you calculate your total playtime and things like that? So
yeah. I guess that's true.
I feel like the
Yeah,
infrastructure is probably there to set something like that up. That seems like it'd be really cool.
yeah. Like I definitely, if that was an option, I'd push for that to be in the game. I think that'd be a little bit more inspiring, or like I think that would improve the mentality of at least up and coming players a lot more. Just seeing the amount of time that people put in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Although I can imagine how it could backfire because people are concerned about like having that list be too long on the scores that they're grinding for and like being self-conscious that people are like, "Oh, your score like has less credit because you spent a lot of tries on it." I mean, I can imagine a small subset. I feel like that wouldn't be the main response, but a small subset of
yeah,
people.
yeah, and it'd be like, wow, like this guy, like my rival, like said it in like 5 times, and
Yeah,
I took
yeah.
like 50 times,
Yeah,
sort of deal, and then like, you might get self conscious with that.
exactly.
But um, I don't know. I think, but at least in that case, because I've seen those before, but like people setting like scores that I've wanted for a long time, like I've been grinding forever, but they set it like in a couple tries where I took like a billion.
Oh man.
You shouldn't really look at it like that. Like the fact that like you will still eventually get it anyways,
Right.
should be a lot more rewarding. Because anyone can set like a random top play in like a couple tries and stuff. Uh, I feel, but what's important is like having the time invested and having like uh the act of like persevering through that grind is a lot more rewarding than the score itself, I feel. At least that's how I look at it. I think you should look at um being proud of like how much you were dedicated to the map rather than like in how many tries have you like took to full comp of something.
To be fair, I think the historical already kind of has that where you like the most played maps section
Yeah.
where it shows like if you grinded a map like crazy. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be cool. I need to note that down. I might make a GitHub post and see what the developers think. But that seems like a really cool idea.
Yeah, that'd be insanely cool. Also, I guess in terms of warm up, um kind of reeling back a little bit.
Yeah.
Um I used to warm up a lot of my own maps. That's a I feel like something that I feel like I did a lot. When I was mapping a lot towards like 2016, like 2017, I'd make a lot of maps that I kind of enjoyed playing and songs that I liked playing. Uh, and I'd make those and I'd play them myself. I feel like that's at least in my specific case, was really helpful for me playing the game. I don't know. I think I took the approach of like if there's like nothing you really want to play, just make it yourself. Make the maps you want to play yourself, and
Right.
that's exactly what I did. That's a little. I don't think you should go that so far as that to practice, but uh, that's just something worth noting of like how I, just grinded through either de-resting or just like enjoying the game.
I remember half slashed started mapping for the same reason.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of players just met because they want to play stuff that they wanted to, play themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's really common. Um, Man, scrolling up the list, that was a lot of maps. Oh my gosh. Um,
What got you first into mapping? Was that sort of your motivation that like there was maps or like you sort of wanted to make maps for yourself?
yeah. Oh well, originally it's when we were playing. Me and you were on. If you remember when we were playing No Suit, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
offline. Uh,
Oh, you would make farm maps.
yes, I would make farm mats for the exclusive purpose of like farming my own farm mats to get higher rank.
Oh yeah.
That was the original reason why.
Oh, that's
But I
funny.
enjoyed it. Uh, I enjoyed it seeing other people play my maps and then getting like random likes from like people. Uh, that was like kind of rewarding, and it kind of made me want to like map a lot more. So originally it was kind of like for the meme purposes of farming my own maps, but then it slowly evolved into like starting to make maps of songs that I liked, or stuff like memes, like jokes with friends, into like starting to get recognized by people, and then asking around, getting a little bit more involved in the mapping scene, and then through like luck, just happening to like get into tournament mapping, and now going through the whole like year and a bit of tournament mapping, and now we're here, and now we're on the ranked mapping grind. I think is mapping in specific, it has taught me as in a player perspective is I think it's been good and bad. You notice a lot of like good players also are mappers. Crystal, good example. Like Pello, good
Oh,
example.
yep.
Chaos Blitz at the time, good example. Uh, Recently in the World Cup, Pinkheart. A lot of people like were surprised that Pinkheart was on the team, but Pinkheart was doing like extremely well, and they are a very like notable mapper as well. So
Archer also, I think, is a
a
mapper.
lot of mapper player hybrids are like good at I'd say are pretty good at the game. Maybe a few examples wise, like they kind of pick up on patterns or like maps, because mapping, you like look at maps a lot, so you kind of study the rhythm a lot. So a lot of like playing maps or like sight reading is kind of like intuitive. I like I guess more when I map a lot, like nowadays when I'm hearing songs, I can kind of like pinpoint what's gonna happen in like a map. Like I expect like a slider, like a fast slider here, or
Yeah.
like I expect jumps here, or like they'll probably, based on like what I know about the mapper so far or what I've seen, the maps will probably be like in off angles or anti jump, or like stuff like catches me less off guard.
Yeah, yeah.
And playing the map is a lot more intuitive. I'd imagine it's like that with a lot of other mappers as well. Uh, that's like something to pick up. Like mapping can help you with like reading maps and sort of sight reading, and just being more knowledgeable about how songs are kind of composed, and like listening to stuff like when one third rhythm changes, that sort of stuff. Being more attention to that, as you have to be when you're mapping, because you have to pay more attention to the music. It kind of helps also in a player perspective, because you also have to pay more attention to like, hey, what's probably gonna come up given like the song and that sort of stuff. Not like you don't have to like be a mapper to like know these things. I think if the more you played Osu, the more intuitive this stuff kind of is. But I just feel like in specific, like if you're a mapper, that stuff kind of comes a little bit more naturally, because you're kind of more focused on thinking about those sort of things. Whereas a player, you're kind of more focused on like say the objects or the spacing. Uh and there are players who also like pay specific attention to like being as faithful to the music as possible. But
Yeah.
you kind of you don't usually get into that mindset unless you've already been like that as an accuracy player, or like say in my case being a mapper.
Yeah, I feel like that perspective that you get from making your own maps is, if nothing else, just from like, as you mentioned, not getting caught off guard as easily, is definitely something that I feel like can be helpful to some extent. Although you could argue that like the same can be developed without learning mapping yourself, but yeah, I do think it's something that is sort of there as I guess as you learn mapping.
Mhm.
So I feel like through everything, are there any main, like above all else, what would you say are some of the most important things to keep in mind when it comes to improvement in general?
Um, well, I feel like this is like a cop out answer, but having fun and is the most important part. I think first and foremost, enjoying what you're doing. Um, I don't think you have to. I don't think OSU has to be your favorite thing in the world to improve at it, but at least playing with every session, uh, with the presence of mind that like you're just there to have fun, and that improvement will come naturally uh through the fun and like through a good mindset really helps. Improvement definitely comes and goes. Because you can sometimes feel like you're like, you take one step forward, two step back, and that's kind of uh, you know, demoralizing. But what you got to realize is that on those you can take like two or three steps forward or four, like on some days, and then some days you'll go like one, two steps back. It's definitely like a range, but the more you keep at it and the more you keep a positive mindset, you're slowly going to inch closer and closer towards your goal. And I think that's really important. Surrounding yourself again with like-minded people, having the willingness to learn and find strategies and skill sets that work specifically for you. It's really important. Um, and I would say just yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the more nitty gritty stuff is kind of personal preference. I guess I could say it's specific for me. uh Find a method that works for you. For me specifically, if you wanted to ever try like me, to grind like I do, play a lot of like skill cut maps that say you'd get like a C rank or a B rank, but you can improve on. Put on that no fail, grind it out. Maybe a song or a map that you like a lot, and then like over the you don't have to play exclusively, but play it a lot and slowly seeing that grind from like the letters going up and up and the miscounts going lower and lower is really satisfying, and find happiness and like satisfaction through those small improvements rather than getting that big score or seeing that big improvement that you get. um Having seeing the journey and then enjoying like the small steps you're making towards your goal is really healthy in keeping your motivation high, and the longevity of your, I guess, improvement, longevity of you playing the game and your motivation. I feel that's really important.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that you mentioned, especially the whole like the specific details are really up to you to find what's most comfortable for you. But this sort of general principle of just having fun with the game, I think will trump any other improvement advice out there.
mhm, mhm. And you can have fun in the game, um, not only through like specifically through self improvement. Um, if you want, like, I don't think I would be involved in this game as much as I was, or like be as motivated to play if I didn't really get intertwined with the community. I think I came back a lot, at least nowadays through 2021 into like 2022 playing actively, because I was kind of like in the loop of like 2018 to 2019 of playing quitting. But what stuck a lot to me through 2021 in 2022 is being more involved in the community, like going to like Anime North and meeting everyone, hang out with like the OC peeps in like my area, or um, you know, it's doing like crazy things like staffing, mapping, community mapping. I remember in February I did that random Valentine's Day stream. That kind of changed the course of my life.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was like, and I still feel the ripple effects of that to this day. Um, where we're still together, we still hang out like every day, that sort of stuff. And through her, like I got a lot closer with the Canadian community. Um, and I don't think I would be willing to grind as much if I was alone or if I wasn't as involved as I am now. So, you don't and I have a lot of fun, not only just because of grinding solo, but also because now, like, just talking with like my friends now that are also tied to the game, or seeing other people like improve and cheering them on. Um, I think a large part of the way I stuck around for like these at least in specific 2 years is like those reasons that I listed. So I don't think that of course, play you will never get better if you don't play the game, but setting yourself for the you know having a good mindset and the mental and the motivation can also come from having fun through other aspects, whether it's like, refing, whatever, talking to people, community, that sort of stuff. That stuff I think shouldn't be underlooked. And I think is often overlooked when it comes to improvement because those things can set up the motivation and mindset to start your journey on that grind of self-improvement.
So, for you specifically, looking more into the future, do you have any sort of, I guess, end game goals or just general goals as we move into the future years? I feel like you've kind of had your rounds around the OC community. You've done a lot of different aspects of like community involvement, not just playing. And so, I'm curious if there's any goals that you have in mind.
Yeah. Expect a lot of PP farm maps from me in the future. I've kind of had my round of uh tournament mapping. I'll probably come back for like the next World Cup or like Corsace or something. But I probably will take a step back in terms of like community mapping and then instead looking towards making farm maps to be honest, or like maps I just enjoy mapping. I think I wanted to get a couple of ranked maps before maybe taking a little break on mapping and probably playing more solo. Uh, I've maybe you'll maybe see the odd tournament that I host here and there, maybe in a couple of years. I'm not gonna be committed to that, but in terms of solo play, mm, I definitely am gonna go back and probably set scores that I really. There's a couple scores that I really want to set. I'm probably approaching like the 8-star range of like maps that I want to FC, and that's really satisfying. So I definitely want to come back into the swing of things and start um, getting those grinding away for those FCs. I know I'll get them eventually, but like it's been a lot of fun practicing like say specific speed. Uh, the ultimate goal of being able to play 270, so I can play like stuff like those 270 spam jump maps, single tap, the Daraband method. But
That's cute.
that's really fun to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think my at least in comparison to a lot of the other interviews that you had, I'm probably a lot more spread out in terms of my involvement in OSU.
I think
I
so.
feel like the people you've asked is a lot more either on the Twitch or like solo play, multiplayer tournament side. And though I do have that, I also am probably like involved in a lot more other aspects of the game. So when people talk about like my future with it, it's kind of up in the airs because I could probably there's a lot of aspects where I kind of want to like delve into, and there's still a lot of stuff to do. I feel like in this game for me, so not necessarily in solo play. So it's kind of like spread around. I feel like um when I want to do something, I kind of spend my time in that specific area of the game. Whether it's like if I'm mapping, I'm not playing much solo. Playing solo, I'm not playing as much tournaments, or I'm not mapping as much. So um, I can't really say that my goals have been concrete, but I do have a couple. I think I'm just right now. I'm kind of just going by. I'm enjoying the game a lot more. Just with that mindset of just like improving at my own pace, knowing that like I'm getting better, enjoying the small improvements that I've noticed. And in terms of mapping, it's like seeing my, going from, I think it's really rewarding going from like someone who made maps as a meme to farm his own maps offline, uh, to, getting some maps that were like, probably not the best quality wise, but were like popular because they were either hard or meme, to like someone who's become like probably more known for their uh tournament maps or that sort of stuff, or having the odd like aim map that's really popular is kind of rewarding. I think growing as both a mapper and a player has been really rewarding, as well as like hosting tournaments. I hosted my lat in February, though it didn't end up the smoothest. I'd say getting involved with the community through hosting tournaments have been kind of both draining and rewarding, I'd say. Definitely like maybe a little shock. I think tournaments nowadays are a little bit more um I'd say professional. Because back then, like the start of the interview, me and you were talking about that kind of laid back and like casual nature of tournaments, right?
Yeah.
And there was no like sort of structure with Discord. So having that doing that leap of hosting a tournament from back compared to like 6 years ago compared to now has been very interesting. I don't know if I'd say I kind of liked it. I kind of wish there was a more casual environment. The problem with like hosting like for fun tournaments now is a lot of people are like, what's the point if there's no badge? Or like,
Yeah.
what's the point if there's no competition? But back then it kind of wasn't like that. It was kind of like, just meeting new people, having fun. Like after we all play, our tournament matches, let's go play like Terraria or like, let's play Starbound or something afterwards.
Starbound.
Yeah. Like it was more about that, like that sort of aspect of the like that's what tournaments were about, at least for me. And you kind of can't have that outlet of like what you get from that from your tournament experience anymore. You can't get that hey, after why don't me and you guys let's play some like game or whatever. Or uh that's a lot less common, especially when it's like a bunch of like randoms. Maybe it's because maybe that's a being older gap and like it's kind of harder to relate. But I don't know. That's how I've looked at it, at least in the more rigidity of tournament rules and like more structured tournaments. Kind of lose that community, chill, inviting aspect of the game that I kind of wish was back. I one day I'd like to find it like a sort of structure that kind of fosters that sort of environment, that
Oh
casual
yeah.
that casual playing for fun environment. I'd like to, if there's one thing I'd like to for new players to experience is that uh kind of feeling of meeting new people and enjoying the game together and meeting new friends because OCU, it was just a game for me. But now it's like kind of a memory and like a memento of like all the people and all the experiences I've had together, encapsulated through this game. It's kind of like a very sentimental thing to have. I just wish people like I'd want people to have that sort of sentimental value through that game. Who like instead of like something that you're exclusively on your own and trying to improve on by yourself.
Yeah, I feel like above all else, this game is more of like you come for the circles, you come for the anime songs, and then I think you really stay for the community and the people that you meet.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's what a lot of people like. Uh, how a lot of people who've been at least around as long as I have you know, been involved in this game for those reasons. I feel like the people who play solo, I've seen time and time again, kind of fizzled out because they weren't really that attached to the community. And it's kind of sad to see, but it's kind of just the reality of how things are.
But yeah, I think it's been exciting to see you kind of stick around through everything. There's
Yeah,
definitely
you too,
been
man.
yeah, there's
You
been
too.
phases where you're just like gone, dead, like goodbye,
Oh
big
yeah.
blackout, and I'm like, no. It's
And
like
then always come back in the cycle. I think in those so in those specific cycles of like um those things, I would say even though I ended up coming back, I'd say don't be afraid to take breaks. I think a lot of those reasons I did quit were personal. Um and if I probably was back in that situation, I'd tell myself, "Hey, take those breaks. Don't
yeah.
feel bad about it." Because I think like when I would ever come back after taking those personal breaks, I'd kind of beat myself up about what wow, I just wasted so much time. Now I have to take so much time to come back and like I wasted like so much time to improve. But those, just you yourself comes first before the game. And if you need to take those breaks, don't be afraid to. There's no shame in that. Everyone improves at their own pace. Everyone has their own circumstances. No one's gonna judge you because you're not playing the game. Like it's not your commitment. Um, Especially with improving. Like if you're not gonna improve with a bad mindset. You're not gonna uh you can improve, um sometimes just by playing it as a way of relieving stress, or like maybe having like getting away from stuff, but I don't think that's healthy for you as a person to do. I think you should, if you have to take a step back and take a breather, I think you should. And I think that's actually a really important skill set to have, is to notice when like you are not okay to play the game at the moment, and that you need to take a step back and come back with a refreshed mind and the willingness to like have the presence of mind to de-rest. Like knowing that you de-resting with a better mindset is better than you playing with a bad mindset in the long run
Oh
is really
yeah,
important, I feel. Yeah.
yeah. I think there's always phases where you have more or less either time or just kind of mental bandwidth to focus on the game, and I think that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. I think there's no shame in that. I feel like um a lot of regret, a lot of people regret their past and always wish they could redo the way they learn the game. But I think you should just own up to it. I think you're your own person. Like, of course, you now that you're so knowledgeable, you'll always wish about, rewriting your past and learning how you would want to learn. But you would never again like be in this position if you didn't, take those breaks. You'd never be in the position you are now as a player if you didn't put in the time and effort. Maybe if it even if inefficient or not, about you still put in that time. So you shouldn't like discredit like the path it took or the time it took for you to get where you were. I think at least I struggled a lot back then with constantly regretting only if I did XYZ, only if I learned XYZ. Like that's I
Yeah,
think that's a very like deep rabbit hole that can get you really stuck and stagnated and improving.
man. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that sounds like a good message to wrap things up with. Or do you have any final words of wisdom or opinions that you'd like to share, or just kind of advice? Anything you'd like to shout out with the world?
Um Anything I'd like to shout out to the Hopes of Canada, Leon, Vinopoly, Spicy. Those guys are gonna go far. Look out for those people for both OWC next year or a couple years. I'm calling it now in advance. Those guys are gonna go far. Um, if you guys need anything about like gameplay related, I'm sure like everyone says this, but like I'm gonna say it anyways. But like I'm always open for like DMs of like maybe I don't know if I'll respond to like all of them specifically, but if you probably like pinged me or like asked me for something in specific, I could probably give you like a short like tidbit. I think um a lot of stuff is kind of repeatable though. Like as in like what people like. Okay, this is my like little personal thing, but like a lot of the things that people ask like top players, they could definitely get the answer from if they just Googled it or they just did a little bit of research themselves. So it's kind of just like not a waste of time, but it's just kind of like I feel like a lot of people who ask them are kind of looking for like short term like answers or like quick answers, easy, easy like hack, easy hack to get good at the game. But it's not that simple. But I'm still open to like discussions about the game or like if inviting to like multi maybe. I think every multi invite, if people just want to play the game, I have said like either yes if I'm not busy, or like yeah you can always invite me later if you want to. I think I'm pretty open to that. Uh, I want to shout out Habib and the rest of the old uh, the old UFRJD guard over the years. Definitely help swells the Canadian community nowadays, who are really like active and like kind of intertwined with each other. I I like to like I think I'm very lucky to be in the country I am in because I feel like at least in Canada in specific, everyone at least in the competitive or like the top player scene knows each other or is like connected to each other in some way.
Right.
which is kind of rare. I think in USA it's kind of all like, I don't want to say segregated, but like I feel like you guys have you like talk within like your own like states or whatever,
Yeah,
or
it
like
is a
your own
little too big, I think, to
yeah, it's a little
really.
too big,
Yeah.
but Canada's that perfect size of like, well, we're only really big in like the West and the East. The middle doesn't kind of exist, and the West and the East always like to talk to each other. So we're often like playing games and stuff. Like a couple days ago, like they were playing like Overwatch, like 10 mans or like whatever and stuff. Uh, so I think I'm really like lucky to be in the country that I am in. But for those who aren't, I'd say you should still try to seek that community that will help you foster like your improvement. Uh, the community aspect of the game is really important, and I think you shouldn't overlook that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think above all else, the community aspect, as I mentioned, is just the one magical thing I think about Osu compared to any other game.
Yeah, no, like definitely, 100%. Like the OC community gets a lot of like bad rep, but like the big stinker. Well, within the big stinkers, there's a lot of great people in this community. Yeah,
That's a good way to put it. But yeah, I think that sounds like a good place to wrap things up. I want to thank you again for taking the time to hang out and
yeah,
share your
alright.
wisdom and thoughts and all that. And of course, for all that you've done in the community. And I'm sure we'll see you around for many years to come, I'm sure, in some shape or form.
Yeah, you'll see me around. I'll always, I as much as everyone likes to joke about quit W, I think I'm one of those people that like no matter how much I say I'll quit, I will come like crawling back to this game in some form or shape or form. I've accepted it by now. It's like I'm here to stay for a while.
Let's go. And yeah, I'm sure those who listen through this interview or maybe have followed you around by other means, I'm sure they had a lot of fun listening to or along with your experiences. So, are there any places where people can find you other than your OSU profile?
You can, I don't stream that much anymore, but I I think I'll have more time during like December, so I might actually get back into it. So I might start streaming at Twitch TV. I think it's Alden underscore Osu.
I think so.
You can add my Twitter. I don't tweet as much either, but I probably will get back into it. I got a couple bangers lined up. I'm gonna say what, but I got a couple lined up. Suri Osu, it's my tag. On Twitter, if you're interested in following that. Uh, if there's anything that you guys really, really want to do, uh, you can follow. What's really like following me on mapping subscribers. I think that'd be kind of cool to have that number go up. It's kind of nice seeing that number go up over the years, kind of bit of validation, but I don't think it's indicative of skill, but it's still nice to know that some people who are interested in my maps will want to get that little ping when I post something. Um, but yeah, it's pretty much it. Uh, you could just add me on Discord, I guess. Alden underscore 6190. It's always or Alden hashtag 619 I'm always open to like, conversations, I guess. Uh for that sort of stuff regarding either the game or just like in general. Um but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Interview
Yeah.
was that was I feel like that was like 3 hours. That was
Yeah.
pretty long. 3.3 hours. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can keep going too. That's crazy. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
I feel like me and you have like gone through so much that like I'm gonna talk about this for like probably like the whole day or something. Just
Yeah.
go down memory lane, but we probably should cut it here.
Yeah, I think I'm sure I may drag you back over here just to chat about random stuff and
Yeah, for
share
sure.
share our stories. But yeah, I think that'll probably do it for this interview. But thanks again, Alden, for joining and everyone for listening. We will see you all next time.
Yep. See ya.